Hello, 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 and welcome to the Supreme Strife preliminary stage, hosted by your very own Plato Gaming, alongside Dirty Dan and Brian. How are you guys doing?
GM.
Good morning, Plato. Good morning, chat. How we doing?
Good morning, indeed.
No good morning to me, huh? No good morning to me,
Sorry,
Dan.
Bryce.
Just good morning to Plato. All right.
It's early.
All right.
It's early.
I think it's still night for you, Brian, because you woke up at 11 p.m. and now it is 3 a.m. West Coast, North American time. But we are still here to cast this first ever preliminary stage of the Supreme Strife. Supreme Strife, for those that do not know, is this new game mode that Rise of Kingdoms has come out with. There was a Pioneer stage, and it's kind of a mix of Ark of Osiris and KVK, where there are these 8 teams that are placed within a map, kind of like a mini KVK, a mini Kingsland, and they have to fight over structures, and these structures give points, and whichever team gets within the top 4 of their map will make it to the next round. I mean, it's pretty interesting. And this is going to be the first ever, real stage of it. We had a taste test with the Pioneer stage. This is going to be the first ever real test of this game mode. I guess I'll throw it over to Brian first. What do you think of Supreme Strife, and what have you seen from it thus far?
Well, I'm pretty excited for this. I've been hoping for a game mode like this in Rise of Kingdoms for years now. Something that is contained to a single day, is competitive and fun, and also involves many more kingdoms than a KVK will involve. There's going to be a lot more diplomacy in this. There's going to be a lot kingdoms working together who haven't worked together in the past. There's also going to be kingdoms who work together one week and then are enemies the next, because only half of the kingdoms or half of the pacts will advance each week. So, and from what I have seen so far, it is a very well-designed game mode where you really don't lose, too much by participating in this. So everything looks good so far, and I think we're really going to see what it's all about today.
As you're talking about, it's going to be really interesting to see how it unfolds, because, as you're saying, this is going to be the first time we see something like this. This has been a game mode. I mean, everyone loves KVK. Everyone loves Ark of Osiris. Putting the two together and making this game mode, this 4-hour game mode, where you kind of get to see both, the skills needed, the flag building needed, the coordination needed in a KVK, and also the same coordination in Ark of Osiris coming together. I think one thing that's really interesting too is that it's going to be one of our first events that's non-kingdom based, where Osiris League is usually kingdom based. Grand Prix, you can make your own teams, but majority of the teams are kingdom based. This time, you could, get your group of friends together from different kingdoms and, register for this event. Dirty Dan, what have you seen thus far of the Supreme Strife?
I'm kind of with both you and Bri here. I like where we're going in the direction. I'm excited to see how this game mode is going to evolve. And I'm also excited as we start to progress into these later rounds. Brian mentioned, different kingdoms working together. And I think as we start to get into the nitty gritties, I have a feeling in my gut that we're going to start to see some really interesting betrayals down the line.
Ooh.
Potentially. Because again, it's kind of kingdom based, but as these teams start to get eliminated, they're going to be able to start to join rosters of other teams. And I think that's going to start to add a different dynamic. And I just think it's going to add this kind of Survivor-esque kind of style to Rise of Kingdoms as we start to head down these brackets. But I'm very excited for this opening round and starting to get to see this fusion of Ark of Osiris gameplay along with KVK gameplay.
As you were talking about, just because your side wins doesn't mean you necessarily make it to the next round. You have to make sure that your pact, your camp, your team is within that top 4. And sometimes that may be with whatever means necessary. May it be taking an allied structure. We'll have to see, because this is going to be the first time we're going to be casting it. It should be a good match. And the 2 matches, by the way, that we are going to be casting as I go to the game here, we're we're going to be casting Group A, which is GV77, headlining the group. We have 007 Zenith Dynamics, Turk, AO77, 60MX, OWR, 3065, and AB in the map. That is Group A. And then Group B will be 60GT, ARB, 1316, 60AP, ZOW, Kong, DQ39, and WTF. So from what you guys have been seeing from these matchups, from these maps, what do you think of the initial stages here?
Well, I think with the Group A that we're looking at here, Map A, we've got to say that GV77 side has a really nice advantage here. They've got both of their alliances on this same map, whereas, for example, 1960 is split between two maps. And then they have also allied with OWR, which feels like also a top 4 pact on this map. Now, we could be in for a surprise, but I think that if we're looking at this from the 60MX point of view, which Plato, you're from 1960, they're going to have to get some real contributions from these packs that we haven't necessarily heard of before if they're going to be able to compete here against 2377's like combined forces.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how these allies shape up. I'm sure GV77, AO77 are going to be allied together in that same map as you're talking about. Dirty Dan, like, what do you think the best allies are? Like, how do you do Diplo for this?
That's tough. I think you want to, as you're getting going in these starting rounds, since this is like a tournament bracket, I think you obviously want to go strong first, right? You want to try and get like the best matchups you possibly can, because again, that aspect of as you start knocking teams out, you're going to be able to start to pull players. Well, you might not be getting you're obviously going to go for the upper echelon of players on there, but you want to make sure that you're getting like the most bang for your buck right off the bat, and trying to get kind of I mean, let's be real, like for now, this is kind of a battle of like ROK all-stars when it comes to like power, right? These are the guys who have the extra speed ups, who have the extra troops to kind of afford something like this. So I think it's very important for teams, if you want to progress through this, to really have your opening like alliances or your packs to be as strong as possible right out the gates. And then from there, you'll be able to kind of start to refine your team as you start to progress through the stages. But I think a key for at least right now in this current setup, the key right now is go in and get your big players, your proficient players who are good at fielding and stuff like that. And also like a nice wrinkle to this that I think that a lot of people might not be thinking about is like some of these players, like you're going to be playing with players that you've probably never played with before, because you're going to be playing with friends of friends. So like you also want to be playing with players who actually follow markers and are going to do the necessary things to win. So kind of a combination of things there, but I think that's kind of the beginning recipes to success in these opening alliances.
As you said, you're going to be being played with players that you never played with before. I'm sure there's going to be some form of practice eventually, but this is so brand new that we're going to have to see how the strategies unfold as we get into the map here.
You know, one thing to think about.
Oh yeah, Brian,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, you know, we talked about some of these strong teams allying with each other on this first week. One thing to think about is like you want to make strong friends early on, and then you advance together and you can potentially be on the same map again. And then it's just like natural that you would ally together the next time around. So that's sort of like why some of these teams are like already working together rather than trying to knock each other out.
As I believe the map has now opened, GV77, we are watching map A here, going towards AB. And if I remember correctly, the allies here is going to be GV versus AB.
Yep.
And then it is 60MX versus AO77. 007 versus Turk. And OWR versus 3065. It's kind of interesting because like these corners are kind of a 1v1 scenario. And you kind of have to build towards a structure, fight towards a structure. But then there's this overall middle structure, which is this Supreme Spire, which gives a ton of points per minute. So it's kind of like a 1v1 in a way where you're allied up, and that doesn't really matter until you're in the middle, or if you win your 1v1 matchup and you get to, you know, help your allies out or fight against your opponents there. I guess the main question is, like, what do you guys think is going to happen in this map? We're watching Group A right now with GV77. Do you think GV77 is going to be able to fight against AB and kind of help the rest of their allies around the map, or will this kind of be held to this 1v1?
Well, I think that, yes, I think GV77 is going to end up probably dominating this map, honestly. What I saw last week, or a couple weeks ago, Plato, when you were playing with 60 GT, is that by the end of the map, you were able to build really, you controlled like at least a third, if not close to half of the map, because flags get built very, very quickly. I think flags take about 6 or 7 minutes to build. And as far as I know, you have unlimited resources to build flags.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
You do? Okay. So yeah, you can just like build as many flags as you want, and the dominant team can just wear down everybody else as time goes on, and then sort of unlock opportunities for their allies to also score points. And I would imagine that's what GV77 is going to do here in like the worst case scenario where their allies do need help. And, you know, as far as this fight here that we're looking at here in this corner, again, what I saw from Plato's experience a couple weeks ago was that you can maybe slow down the enemy's building a little bit here, but they generally can just flag past you anyway. Like, you can't completely cut them off here. Although actually in one of the other corners when you played Plato, I feel like 49 actually did like block off one of your allies.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, as you were talking about, the initial stages there is this big murder ball fight, as there is in KVK, as there is in Kingsland. But the main important thing is to make sure that you have your flag builders. You have to make sure that you build these flags. You have to make sure that, you know, you have everyone in that flag. You're continuously, you know, hopping from flag to flag, because in the beginning, especially in the beginning stages of the match, you kind of have a skillful craftsman where the flags build faster in the initial stages. So you want to make sure you sprawl out, you make out your territory, you make up your territory, both a flag towards your opponents here, a flag towards the structure, but overall a flag towards the Supreme Spire in the middle as well. But you have to keep in mind, I said 3 different flag points, 3 different flags that you have to build. And those flag lines, I mean, sometimes even in KVKs, even in the 960s of the world, it's hard to find people to build. How much more in a Supreme Strife when you only have 45 players?
Yeah,
And they're all whales. They're all whales who have never built a flag in their life, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Plato. I think they might be able to get away with it in these initial rounds, but going forward, and it'll be a little bit easier because they will start to obtain more players. But that's such an interesting point, is that you really have to manage how many players you're assigning to these flags, because if you overcommit on your flags, you could weaken your field a little bit too much. So that's a really great point here. And to Brian's point too, like, yeah, a lot of these players, like they're like not even whales. A lot of them are probably Krakens who, yeah, have never built a flag on an opening, on like a pass opening or anything like that in their life. So really going to be interesting to see how some of these players react, being like, hey, like going forward, like if they're looking at like the stat breakdowns on this, like, hey, like you didn't do well last week in terms of kill points, so you're going to be in a flag build. And someone might turn around and be like, what do you mean? I'm 500 million power. I'm not building a flag. So I'm curious to see how some of those things start to play out and unfold as we progress through these weeks.
I remember when I played the Pioneer stage, I was considered a low power player at 106 million power. So they're like, all right, everyone that's below 120, You got to build the flags. Everyone above, keep open fielding. Because you have to keep in mind, the limiting resource here is there's no hospitals. When you get into a city, for example, or when you stat face, you don't have a hospital. There's no severely wounded, but rather the limiting resource is deads. Because when you're out in the open field, you take a certain amount of deads. And that's why it's like you have to kind of make sure that you keep your power up. You can see a lot of these cities are pretty high powered. 125, 112, 164. Let's check into these cities in an hour or two when they're going to be down to 90, 80. We've seen some 65 million power cities because of the limiting factor. And I think that's really interesting because in this game mode, it's not all about, at least for the most part, for not the mega whales that have 500 million power, which I guess wouldn't be the case for GV77 because they have a lot of high powered players in this team, a lot of high powered players in this kingdom. But for the most part, the trades will actually matter because you want to make sure you trade properly, or else you might not have enough gas until the end of the match.
And as far as, just to get everybody on the same page in terms of how this game mode works, in terms of getting your dead troops back, my understanding is that there's sort of a quest line, like a Lucerne Scrolls type of quest line that all of these players are progressing through as they play this event. You get points for kill points. You also get points for training troops. Early on in that quest line, if you buy the $50 bundle, you will get a essentially like a resurrection bonus where you can resurrect 5 million dead troops after each match. By default in that quest line, even if you don't buy the bundle, you get another 5 million troops rebate after each match. So that's 10 million troops that everybody can get back. Then there are also scrolls. There are also resurrection scrolls, which I did not quite understand how you acquire the scrolls, but they can give you a moderate amount of, additional troops back. But like Plato, do you think people are going to be going through more than 10 million troops in a single match? I would imagine some people are.
I think I remember seeing Baba when the first iteration of this came out. Like, he went down to like 500 million power, which for Baba is quite a low amount of power. So you definitely can go over that 10 million in the gap, and that's going to be really interesting as we go through the later rounds here, or even this round. How much are you willing to commit into this game mode? Because, it might be an all-in for some of these players, but an all-in might mean you take real deads, you take perma-deads, because as we were talking about, there is a maximum capacity of deads you can take in this Supreme Strife, rather, where if you take over 10 million deads in the Supreme Strife when you buy the bundle, then that's going to be permanent dead troops on your account. So it's going to be really interesting to see, especially when the matches get tight, which teams are willing to go over that 10 million cap and keep open field and keep going for those structures versus the teams that say, you know what, this is not worth it, where we want to save our troops for KVK, want to save our troops for the future Osiris Leagues, and, kind of pull back.
I know if I was one of those big players for some of those cosmetics, I would go for it. some of these cosmetics look really cool, and I mean, these guys are like, and when you talk about like the upper 1% here, like, I mean, these guys, like, they go for like all the zeniths, right? These guys have like every zenith skin. They'll have every frame. A lot of them obviously will have Osiris League skin. So I'm sure there's definitely some hardcore collectors who are like, yeah, you know what? I'm willing to throw it all on the line. I don't care about my troops. I want those cosmetics.
As we continue to see these flag lines get built, 3 flags built for GV77. There's also 3 flags built for AB over here. So pretty even in terms of the flagging from both sides here. The touch points are now going to start connecting here. As you can see, 47 seconds on the AB flag. There's 51 seconds So there's going to be a 4 or 5 second window where AB might be able to swarm down the flag. Probably unlikely, though. And that's going to be one of the things, too, is that you take full deads from swarming. You take full deads from defending a flag. So these flag the flag gameplay here is going to be a major component to deads as well.
Yeah, and one of the things here that's going to be different and, in my opinion, cooler than a lot of these Imperium KVKs that we watch is that the trades are really going to matter here, right? When you watch some of these Imperium KVKs and you see these endlessly long open field fights, there is a question about, does it really matter which team is getting the better trade here? Like, does it matter if one team is forcing the other team to heal more often? Because a lot of these players, they just have nearly unlimited speed ups, resources, and troops. And so that trade is almost less important than the objective of getting the flag and getting that territory. But in this mode, it's almost more like a smaller KVK, the kind of KVKs I play in, where it's like, it matters. You know, if you are winning the open field trades for an entire evening, and you're causing the enemy to heal their hospital 3 or 4 more times, then that can have an impact on the larger war, the multi-day war that takes place. And I do think it's going to be interesting to see if people fight any differently in this. I think it's going to be interesting to see if we have different teams emerge as the top teams when you can potentially be worn out by like just having so many dead troops that you don't want to take more deads. But, you know, as Plato says, some people might have so much stuff that they don't mind taking 50 million deads, 100 million deads in power. But I think a lot of people will care. I think a lot of people might get capped out at some point in these fights. We'll have to see as this event goes on.
It's going to be so interesting, as you were talking about, Brian, because again, these accounts, even the top whales, there's going to be 4 rounds of this. This is essentially the preliminaries, then there's a quarters, semis, and then finals. And every single time, if you go over 10 million deads, you're going to be chipping more and more troops away from your account. More troops away, potentially away from an Osiris League in the future, a KVK in the future. So even those big whales, if for example, if you get 20 million deads and you get 10 million permanent, that's 100 million power you're essentially taking off of your account for this game mode. So it's going to get more and more and more challenging to continue to commit. And right now, I feel like you could say this is kind of like a zone 5 fight, right? Where everyone's fresh, everyone's like, you know what? This is the first time in this game mode. We're gonna go kumbaya. I could swarm any city, whatever. By the finals, I'm assuming everyone's gonna be fighting like it's Kingsland, where this is the end of the fights. This is where we're gonna zero ourselves. But you're not gonna be so keen to swarm that 90 million power city that's out of territory.
You know, Plato, somebody in the chat is saying, please show the OWR side. I think that is probably a good thing to show. It's going to be the northeast corner of this map. I was watching this fight, and I will say that in the very first engage here, 3065 did push back OWR. So this may be a competitive corner up here. Both teams seem to be flagging like pretty similarly, I guess. OWR might be a little bit faster, but so far pretty competitive over here in the top right.
And the thing that's interesting is it looks like both sides are kind of avoiding the touch points here, where we see all of the other sides, they're building flags into each other. This is touching, that side's touching, this side's touching. This top side's like, you know what? We're going to focus on the long game. We're going to try to deny the flags. Yes, we're going to try to, you could see OWR trying to deny the flag builders, trying to stop some flags from building. They are pushing pretty deep into this murder ball here, perhaps to try to sad face the classic Osiris League tactic of, you know, sad facing your marches so that you get home faster. But for the most part, it's kind of like uncontested building from this side. Although I do think OWR, they have an extra flag on 3065 on this top right side. All right, this is the state of the map of Group A. everyone's starting to build towards these initial structures, we're going to go ahead and swap over to the map B here. As I get back to my home kingdom.
Yeah, let's see how to figure out how to do this.
I've been doing a little bit of scouting
Strife.
on that end too as we get into the next map, and coincidentally the maps are looking rather identical. And if we just look at like a grand scope real quick, DQ39 and Kong are going up against each other currently, and it's very much the same thing as the OWR situation in the first map that we were looking at, where they're kind of avoiding the touch points. I think DQ39, I don't know if they're super active right now because they are building rather slowly, and there's been a little bit of open fielding, but it's kind of interesting to see how on both of these maps, the top right corners are playing for a little bit of a different option. And then we're trying to avoid the touch points and just going for their structures in a separate kind of manner like that. And then if you go to the left side with 60GT versus WTF, and then pretty much all the other fights going on around the map, where on this one would be 60GT versus WTF, ZOW versus 60AP, and 1316 versus ARB. Everyone is pretty much trying to touch immediately and get onto some of this fighting. So very interesting to see how both of the maps are pretty similar in that manner. And I will say here that it does look like GT's got to start working here a little bit, because Kong is, or WTF is, it looks like they're starting to outpace them on this flag line a bit.
We're talking about how some of these whales have never built a flag in their lives. I will say that I was part of the build team for Pioneer stage, so perhaps 60GT, they needed me in their team, but I mean, it looks like they're doing pretty decent. I think 60GT, they outpower the rest of the camps or the rest of the packs here by quite a bit. So they should be fine, but I will say in the Pioneer stage, the structure, I believe the shrine is what it's called. Let me double check.
The Spire is the middle.
The circle, the Supreme Circle was taken by our opponents, more than once. I think it's taken twice, 3 times. And the interesting thing about this map, as chat was talking about, is if you get disconnected from territory, you instantly teleport back to your home base. So,
Huge.
And it's really important to make sure your territory is connected. It's really important to make sure you back flag, because what happened was when the circle was disconnected, we didn't have any contingency plan. So everyone teleported to the right of the circle was automatically teleported out. So we'll have to see how 60GT play this. They are kind of behind in terms of flags. I guess they're actually
close.
ahead.
They're ahead, but they're almost 2 parts of their flag line might get blocked off here. So that's where they kind of have to hurry a little bit to get that middle flag line out and in front of WTF.
Yeah.
But they are going to touch that circle first.
It is pretty interesting because 60GT opted for the 4 flag lines. You can see there's usually 3 flags. They're double flagging here. But most teams, they go for the 3 or even the 2, opting for the 4, the initial flag line on the top here to try to cut off and threaten the lock. Meanwhile, there's this middle one to try to interrupt the flag line of WTF, and then the main one to touch the circle here. It'll be really interesting to see if 60GT will be successful with their endeavors in trying to kind of lock WTF from not touching the circle, or if WTF will be able to outbuild 60GT.
To give you everybody a little bit of background on WTF, I would say that this is a bit of a Korean super team, or at least a solid Korean team. There are 2 players from my kingdom who are in this Supreme Strife event. They're both on this WTF team. I Eat Calves and White Castle. White Castle is actually rocking the R5 role at the moment. And, I think that if White Castle is leading things for WTF, then, listen, he's the best player I've ever played with. But if he's leading things, they probably are lacking war leads a little bit. And, but they are competing very well with 60GT here. I think all in all, this is pretty good competition for 60GT on week 1. And just looking around the map at some of WTF's allies, it does seem like a bunch of at least 2, maybe 3 Korean pickup teams are against GT here.
As we see the flag from WTF get swarmed down by Genie and Al Haytham, typical 1960 fashion. Just swarm everything that's touching, that's building, and they were able to successfully remove that touch point and potentially threaten some form of cut here.
I think Brian, you made a good point, which I think through Supreme Strife we might see this a very interesting evolution in Rise of Kingdoms. I think initially you're obviously going to try to make teams that you can communicate well with, and then as you progress through these rounds and you start to pick up other players, you're gonna have to these leaders are gonna have to work on, and Lilith putting more work on the leaders as usual. They're gonna have to work to create separate voice channels in their Discord for it, which isn't a hard thing to do. But you're gonna start to bring people together who haven't usually played together yet. And I think this is going to be a very interesting thing for the community going forward. This is going to bring exposure to players that they never had before. Some of these players are going to be like, wow, I never got a chance to play with GT players. And now you're getting to experience, if you are an English speaking player and you get picked up, you're going to be able to experience 60 GT war calls firsthand. And that could really kind of lead you towards, oh, I really like how they do this, and maybe going in and applying for a kingdom like 960. So I'm very curious to see how the evolution of Supreme Strife evolves Rise of Kingdom as a whole going forward.
I mean, no joke, WTF probably has players from about 20 different kingdoms.
Yeah,
there's 50 players
exactly.
on the team, and there's at least 20 kingdoms represented by this team. And, for the moment, we're seeing them do pretty well in the field. But my sense of this event is that actually this is a bit of a war lead type game mode. They call the NFL a quarterback league. And I think that war leads are going to be a pretty big deal here. One reason being that everyone has basically unlimited teleports, right? You can just teleport as much as you want. And it's a very big map. And just the ability to get either your entire army to work together in the same place, or your ability to split up your forces appropriately to both help yourself and your allies, that's going to require some good war leading. And it's going to require war leads that people really do listen to, which is one thing, if you're all in the same kingdom, you're kind of used to listening to the same people. But if you've got people like whales from 20 different kingdoms, and you have to get all those people on the same page, you're going to need a war leader that people really, really believe in. And, I think as this day goes on, I think we might see GT's just better organization and teamwork start to manifest itself more than it has early on.
There's an Arthur Garrison in this flag. Sorry to interrupt you, Brian. There was literally 4 flags that just got insta-swarmed down in this one corner. I think this is going to be this type of shenanigans that we see every single week from these matches. It's going to be
Who swarmed them down? Who
crazy.
swarmed down the flags?
WTF, 2 of their flags went down, and 60GT, 2 of their flags went down.
Okay.
So
okay.
it was kind of they were both trying to just get a flag down in that spot, which was really interesting to see. And now it's 60GT's turn yet again. And this time they actually have open field. So they're going to swarm down this flag. They're going to insta put down a flag, put a garrison in there.
Circle is open too, Plato. Circle is open too. We got 60GT starting a swarm. WTF starting to march some troops down onto the circle. Trying to avoid, I think GT is the only one that's actually properly touching right now. So they are going to try to stall
they're the
that
only one
out here.
touching. 2 minutes on the WTF flag to touch this thing.
Yeah, and WTF is sending all of their players down, leaving their flag vulnerable. That is now going to get swarmed. This is chaos.
Is absolute
QSH.
chaos.
QSH, not the worst garrison. Not the worst garrison.
I mean, if QSH is a garrison, he'd be the perfect Rise of Kingdoms commander.
I see a Yan. They're trying to get a Yan in there. They've got a Yan in the field, but they're trying to get in.
This is
There's
absolutely
the Gorgo.
crazy. This is
the Gorgo.
It's going to be
yeah,
huge
this is a
flag
huge fight.
hold. because this is going to be the touch point for WTF. If this flag goes down, WTF will not be touching the circle, and the flag has gone down. So the Supreme Circle will kind of be in 60GT's hand, at least until the flag that WTF just put down is built. But 60GT in retaliation is building their own flag as well. And who would have thought we are casting flag building in 2025?
Classic flag race. Let's go. This is every builder's dream right here. Who's got the better building?
Yeah, I mean, and you can see that, you know, WTF probably doesn't have an organized build team. Just their inability to fill up these flags quickly and have garrisons for it. And, you know, that's another like war lead thing. Like, how do you convince these whales to devote everything to flag building? It's very difficult to do. It's really, really difficult to do. But the people who can do it well are going to have a big advantage. You already see the advantage here, where probably WTF would have gotten this circle first if they both had flags there, because they sort of cleared the circle first. But as it is, it looks like GT's probably going to get this the first occupation on the circle here in a minute or two.
Quick update: we don't have to pan over to it right away, but on the bottom side, 60 AP is touching their circle with ZOW building a flag right now. 1.5 minutes left for that flag to build. No fights really going on there just yet. There's a little bit of skirmishing, so I'll keep an eye on that for you guys while you stay up there.
Yes, sir. The circle now is getting swarmed by 60GT. This should be the first circle of the game. No other team has generated points as of yet. There is a first occupation of 1k points and then 5 points per second for the rest of the duration that you control this circle. So 60GT will be first on the board here in this map, as a circle will shortly go down here. The circle is swarmable, as you can see. You want to make sure that none of these none of these barbarians go to the circle, or else the circle will heal. But 60GT were able to swarm it down. They were first by a small margin, as Kong also captured their circle on their end.
One thing to point out is this first occupation reward works differently than it does in Ark of Osiris. First occupation can be achieved by all teams. So if WTF is able to take this circle later, they will also get that 1,000 point bonus. The real advantage the GT has here is they're getting 5 points per second, which after 4 minutes, that's more than the first occupation. So still a very good win for GT for sure.
60 AP, they don't have too many people around here. The barbarians here, the believers, are going to be able to
You can't let them get in. Yeah.
They heal the circle.
They'll full heal it.
It is full health, as you were talking about. So 60 AP showing us what happens if you don't have enough people to swarm down this circle. They should be able to take it, though. They do have a lot of troops coming up from the murder ball, but I would expect, I would expect that ZOW would be right behind them, as they do have a touch point here as well in this circle. This might get interesting here. 60
Gift code in the chat. Gift code in the chat. Everybody grab it.
There is a gift code. The gift code is QBIANI7TN7. It is in the bottom left of the screen here. As we continue to watch this circle get captured, it looks like it will start to go down here. And although it was a bit dicey, 60 AP will be able to take the circle here.
60 AP is one of the allies of GT's opponents. So at this point, with Kong and AP both capturing a circle, I believe that means that it's GT's opponents who have a very slight lead at this point.
All right, so 960, 60 GT, they might be fighting all over the map, as we saw in the Pioneer stage. As they continue to fight WTF, you could see the power start to creep down a little bit here. 106 million power. Actually, a lot of these people are super high power. My goodness. 151, one. It looks like these guys will be able to fight for quite some time, actually. And one thing we have to keep in mind, I believe from the Pioneer stage to now, they actually did decrease the amount of deads you take from the open field. So you will be able to open field fight for a bit longer than than previously. I don't know the exact number of how much they decreased the open field deads, but that was one of the biggest complaints, because I believe it was, what was the old number? Was it 40%? Was it 60% deads out in the open field?
It was 40% in the field, or at least that's what it is now. I can tell you what it is now. By the way, Plata, look at that circle. If you go to that circle and look at the flag on the right of the circle, the GT circle, it almost looks like you can build, not through a circle, but like you can use the control of the circle to build an additional flag, which is like very different than KVK.
Yeah, you can use a circle to build an additional flag, and that's what we were talking about for the Pioneer stage, because 60GT, they actually had a full flag line behind the circle, but then their opponents captured the circle, rendering all the territory to the right inactive, and it teleported everybody out of that territory, because you have to be on territory in this game mode. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the future, if that's going to be, you know, a contentious point of sorts in the future. As, you know, you could see that the flag line of 60GT, yet again, going straight towards the Supreme Spire, trying to make sure that they have full control of the map. And when you have middle of the map, you can decide which way you want to go. You could decide if, okay, our allies down here are, you know, fighting against 60 AP, perhaps we could send a contingent of marches there. Our allies over here are fighting against Kong, perhaps we could send some marches there. It'll be really interesting to see where 60GT decide to go. As it actually looks like WTF are actually going to try to help DQ39 here.
Well, they're against DQ. They're against DQ39. They're probably going to be trying to help Kong over there.
Oh, they're going to be helping Kong, yes.
Yeah.
As you can see,
I don't know if they need too much. It looks like DQ39's sleeping a little bit. I mean,
well, that would make the map more interesting. That would make the map a lot more interesting if DQ39 is, not really trying too hard.
Yeah, this is really interesting. They're ganging up. They're kind of.
I mean, it could be another, like, you know, another strategic thing too. I think one thing I would like to see, because you guys mentioned before, like it's unlimited.
It's
unlimited
WTF
resources.
swarming Kong though, which is interesting.
I mean, you've got them as allies.
That was a map Cortex sense. Perhaps this is the betrayal we were talking about. It's like, all right, we're losing against CCGT, so let's go get this circle.
Yeah, maybe these allies are different, actually.
You guys were mentioning before, it's unlimited resources to build flags, correct?
Yes.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. As someone who's like been part of like a build team, like I understand this is the first iteration. I think there should be some kind of limiting factor. I think that because I feel like, I mean, it could go both ways, right? You do need to be able to like kind of back flag to kind of like stay in this thing, and you need the unlimited resources to do it. But I feel like it could just really put someone in a pinch really quick. Like, I mean, and it kind of removes a layer of strategy, I should say. So we'll have to see it play out a little bit more. But my initial thoughts is I might want to see some kind of limitation or factor that plays in to the amount of flags that you do build.
Yeah, perhaps.
I think that
perhaps like a limit in terms of the amount of flags you could put down at one time, or something like that, because it'll be tough to kind of. There is a cap in terms of the amount of flags you can have, but when we won the Pioneer stage, we literally put down, I think, 100+ flags at the same time. So it was. It was kind of crazy, but yeah, I mean, as this is going to be a work in progress, I believe the rules are set in stone for this iteration of the Supreme Strife. But yeah, I think Rise of Kingdoms is always up for suggestions, as always. As yeah, this is going to be an interesting WTF versus Kong matchup, as it looks like 60GT kind of have full control of this area here. I'm curious to see where 60GT is going. They're actually going towards WTF and going towards, and perhaps trying to stop their build towards the Supreme Spire here. Yeah,
it looks like WTF is just they're trying to advance. WTF is trying to find a way to advance in this Supreme Strife. The top 4 teams advance, and there are 5 structures. If you give either GT or 1316 the entire left side of the map, including the Spire in the middle, then if WTF can hold this Supreme Circle over here, then potentially they can generate enough points to advance. And I think that's probably what they're doing. It looks like they are actually allied with DQ39, who is struggling. And, you know, you're just sort of seeing the way that underdog play can actually make for some interesting fighting, because what's going to happen is GT is going to have to walk a relatively long way to get to this fight, which will give WTF an advantage, at least for the next, I don't know, hour or so. Because WTF is blocking them from coming over here, right? Yep. Like, if we look at the flag lines that WTF has built, they've built this one straight flag line towards the Spire, but they're not really going for the Spire. They're just trying to block GT from getting teleport space over at this circle. So it could be a very interesting fight at this spot.
Yeah, this is it's really interesting because the thing about this game mode is allies, unlike Ark of Osiris where it's a 1v1, allies are kind of determined by the players, as it is in KVK, as it has been in Rise of Kingdoms, but we haven't casted any multiple camp objective. The only thing we've been casting is Ark of Osiris, which is very objective. This is going to be a 1v1. Whoever has the most points wins. For this, there's so many different factors here. There's so many different teams. There's 8 different packs that want to advance. And even though on paper there's going to be allies here and there, and there's allies on paper, because from what you guys are telling me, Kong and WTF, from what we've been told, were allies.
But that must have changed. It must have changed at some point.
That must have changed. Yeah, we don't have full context up behind what's happening, but it's really interesting to see how WTF is like, okay, we lost the 1v1 against 60GT, to be expected. Now our contingency plan is to take Kong's circle and try to advance that way.
You have 60GT marches starting to march over to assist Kong in these efforts now too. So there is a huge train of 60GT players now starting to march over to those fights.
We have Genie in the front. Yeah. We also have iMigvo. It's a bunch of Genie. We have
there's like 2 Genies. Wow. Genies all over the place.
There is iMigvo's Siege coming up here. And, you know, we're talking about how trades are going to be important. Perhaps Siege is actually going to be really good, too, because Siege gets free trades if you use them correctly. But you can see a lot of marches coming in from 60GT, going to be joining the party here on this top side of the map. The shenanigans going on, because there's just so much going on. And it looks like there's kind of like 3-4 different stakeholders that all want a piece of the pie.
You know, one of the things that is going to matter in all these matches every single week, and we're already seeing it in this match, is how much do the allies who are comfortably winning care about helping their other allies? On this map that we have now, on the left side of the map, 1316 is in complete control of the southwest corner. GT is now in complete control of the northwest corner due to the fact that WTF is rotated. Do these players want to commit 4 hours of walking across the map to this fight to help their allies Kong try to advance as well? My bet is that they do care enough, because it's going to boost them on the leaderboard. They'll progress through the quest line better. And, you know, they're here. They might as well have some fun. But this is going to be a choice that gets made through all these matches, is like, how are we going to try to make sure all 4 of us get through? Do we only want to get the top 2 through? I mean, at the end of the day, 1st place and 4th place in these preliminary events, they accomplish the exact same thing.
Yeah, so that's going to be the interesting thing, right? Is you have like the ally objective of your side winning this map, but at the same time, the thing that matters the most is that your pact makes it through. Is that your pact makes it into the next round, because as we were talking about, the top 4 packs in terms of points are the ones that make it through, and so far there's only 3 packs that have gotten points. Oh, there should be 4 packs actually. It should be 4. There are 4 packs that are gaining points. You can see 60GT in first place, Kong in a close second, 60AP in third, and 1316 in fourth. WTF, ZOW, ARB, and DQ39, they will want to start getting these structures soon if they want to advance.
So in chat, Pokemon Trainer is saying that they're not allied with Kong. So why are WTF and Kong fighting?
Yeah, you can see that WTF fighting against Kong. There is going to be a bunch of 60 GT marches now murder balling up. And this is the shenanigans we were talking about. Is that there's 3 different stakeholders here. WTF going rogue in a way where they're fighting against Kong for this circle, because 60 GT for sure aren't allied with WTF. Again, this is just from our understanding as casters. We're not in the discords, we're not in the Diplo chats. But this is so interesting because I believe the initial allies that we saw was 60 GT is allied with DQ39. So it'll be really interesting to see what 60 GT decide to do here in this triple, I guess, attack on this circle here.
And you know, the crazy thing is that Kong and WTF are both Korean super teams. These are probably players who know each other very well. I think there's some people from the same kingdoms in these things. I'm not positive, but I feel like I saw somebody from 1846, for example, on both of these teams. So it's a pretty wild move by I guess WTF to from what we can tell, just portray their allies within the first hour of this thing.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting. You can see that WTF, they are starting to teleport some cities up here. 60 GT just watching. They're like, all right, well, we're just going to be here. We're going to, you know, relax and see what happens. Kind of just being the spectators to the madness that's going on as WTF continues to push towards Kong's Supreme Circle here. Kong also getting attacked by DQ39. DQ39 now starting to build some flags. They are starting to build towards Kong. So Kong getting pressured by 2 different points. The circle as well as that top right corner. As you can start to see WTF now swarming down this circle here.
Another thing to think about, right, is, okay, maybe WTF and 1960 are enemies this week. But if WTF advances, maybe they want to be allies later on in the tournament. You know, there can easily be a quiet conversation happening right now where 1960, I have no idea if this is happening, but 1960 says, hey, you guys just, we'll let you guys fight these guys, and no strings attached, but that does, you know, make a friendly relationship between WTF and 1960, who may be on the same map again. Who knows?
You can see 60 GT being the bearers of bad news to both WTF and Kong. The murder ball of death is now making their way through to the circle. This is going to sound alarms for both WTF and Kong as the third party, 60 GT, now coming in to ruin the fun.
I feel like I'm watching KVK1 all over again. Well, the nutty diplomacies. If you know, you know. But those KVK1 days, I mean, it's so chaotic. There's so many backdoor deals. I was a part of a bunch when I was in 2581, and like, it's giving me some like PTSD from back in those KVK1 days, because things can change on a whim, and we're kind of seeing that here live with this Battle of the All-Stars and the Battle of the Whales and the Supreme Strife.
The funny thing is, 60 GT, they actually can't swarm down the circle, so they're literally just here for fun. There's nothing for them to gain right now. They're just, you know what? There's people here, we're gonna fight here. That's essentially what's happening. You can see there's a bloodbath at the Supreme Circle. This is absolutely insane.
That's right, because they're not allies with Kong either, right? Like, I was thinking they were allies with Kong because just the way things were shaking out, but actually these are both their enemies. Their allies are DQ39, which is, you know, very slowly flagging and getting here.
It's kind of funny because you can see Kong is now swarming down GT when GT is the one that kind of took away WTF from the circle.
Yeah, exactly.
And GT is now like saying, all right, we're going away, Kong. We're not fighting you guys. We're going to just fight WTF. I'm really curious to see, because, you know, I'm in 60 GT. I'm going to be talking to these guys. What was going on in the voice calls? What was going on for this situation to happen where they're essentially now in a battle royale in this circle here? Because there's no way they're walking home from this situation. Oh my goodness.
And they are pushing into WTF now. So, yeah. You know, there is like maybe a tacit alliance here between Kong and GT just because they have a common enemy here.
60 GT saying, this is what you guys get for going away from our side. We're going to go over to you guys and just focus you, perhaps. As you can see, they're just going straight into the murder ball of WTF. And WTF, I mean, they are getting overwhelmed by 60 GT right now. And this has just been pandemonium on this top right side. The rest of the map, by the way, we could see that this circle is still in 60AP's control. 60AP was able to burn down the ZOW flags. We also have ARB that is fully locked by 1316 at this point. So 1316 should be safe to move on this bottom left side rather. So it looks like the right side of the map is the only side for contention, and 60GT fully being in control of this side, saying, you know what, WTF, you guys, we're gonna let Kong just have this circle. We're just gonna fight WTF. But yeah, this is a really, really interesting fight. As you know, we will go back to this map, but for now, let's go ahead and go back to GV77 and see how things have been going and progressing over there. As we are back in 60 GT, going over to Supreme Strife, then
doing a little bit of scouting over here, and yeah, it's looking a little tough for 60MX in the bottom right hand corner as expected. So on this map, just for chat, for clarifications, this is 60MX, 3065 Turk, and AB versus the 2377 Kingdoms. OWR and 007. So as expected, OWR and AO77 kind of sandwiching 60MX, so making their lives a little tough down there.
Oh my goodness.
And then a nice sprint for the middle from the top left kingdoms.
This is a good sprint here. If I remember correctly, AB and GV77 are opponents, but it actually looks like AB kind of outbuilt GV77 here. So they might actually be able to tap Supreme Spire for that first occupation, which will be 3k. But as Brian was talking about, first occupation is whenever your pact gets that first occupation, you get the extra 3k. So every pact that touches that Supreme Spire should be able to have access to that 3k. But we're talking about 60MX over here getting sandwiched from both sides. It's kind of reminiscent of Kong in that map that we just watched.
Yeah, the only difference here... Yeah, no betrayal. And also, you know, just the fact that 60MX is a team that most would expect to progress to the next round. And just with the way these allies have shaken out, they both are going to have a tough time advancing to the next round, but they also have a chance to do it. It's kind of interesting that 60MX got this circle over AO77. These are both sort of the B teams of their kingdoms. So a very good opening here for MX to get this circle, and they're holding it so far. Although AO77 actually does have more points than MX at the moment. So I guess AO must have had this earlier. They must have had the circle earlier.
One thing that's interesting is that the circle in the bottom left has not been touched at all. So that's why that AO77 and 60MX, they are, you know, kind of fighting for that third and fourth spot, is because the bottom side of the map, the bottom left side, has not captured the circle at all. So I'm curious as to why the bottom left has not contested the circle and started generating points, but it looks like Turk is going to finally start, you know, going towards trying to capture that Supreme Circle. But yeah, I think this map, the 4th spot, might be between those two teams that we talked about, AO77 as well as 60MX. It's going to be really interesting to see which side will be able to, progress here. Because you were talking about this is the B team for both sides, AO77 being the B team for GV77, obviously 60MX being the B team of 60GT. You could see that the powers are so low. 77 million power, 86 million power, 75 million power. The powers here compared to the teams that we're looking at earlier are very, very low. So these are the teams that we were talking about. There's going to be a certain amount of troops and certain amount of power that these teams will have, and we are only we're less than an hour in, and some of these players are already going to be tapping out like relatively shortly here.
I do have to say that I like that this is that wrinkle that we were kind of talking about of like you do kind of have to like pace yourselves and kind of like play smart, right? Like you can't go full send all the time, because this isn't like an OL match where you can just simply like reheal the troops if you need them. So you do really kind of have to play smart, especially if you're on a team or you're a player that has a little bit less power and a little bit less troops to afford. So it will definitely be interesting to see if 60MX is going to be able to kind of throw around that little extra weight that they have. And then in addition to that, I mean, OWR with their flag line down here, obviously they're going to be kind of pestering 60MX, but anytime that they come down here to help, it's going to free up 3065 a little bit up top. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I think the best thing that MX has going for it right now is that 3065 has been pretty good today. We saw them competing well with OWR early on, and they are still, I mean, their flags are burning, but they're causing trouble for OWR, where OWR cannot full focus down here on MX. But I still think MX is in a bit of trouble today, Plato, because the thing is, AO77, they're always going to advance because they're going to be able to take the center structure at times and get a lot of points that way. And down at the bottom left in the southwest corner, 2377's allies will probably eventually hold this circle for quite a long time. That's going to be...
Wait, sorry to interrupt you. There's a double rally from both sides on this circle. What is going on? This is an absolute mayhem today. But that's exactly why we're casting it. That's exactly why this game mode has so much promise, is because we have no idea what's going on, and it has been so entertaining to watch.
You get a little bit of everything, right? You get a little bit of NPC go after your structures. You have to fight in the middle of it. Like this is so chaotic, but so like enjoyable to watch.
It looks like Turk will get the first capture here. Will they, or will it be a snipe? It is Turk. So finally, the bottom left circle has been captured. Turk will be trying to catch up to 60MX for those points. They are down by about, let's see, they're down by about 2.4k. The interesting part about this matchup is 60MX. They are fighting for their lives. You can see they're playing very defensive. They're only playing around the Supreme Circle right now. The thing that's interesting is we're talking about 3065 and 3065 wanting to advance, 3065 fighting against OWR. But as the match progresses, 3065 will start to lose these flags. They'll start to lose momentum. Will they continue to push if they know that they won't advance to the next round?
Yep, that's one factor. The other factor is, will GV77 continue to flag south and help their allies against Turk? 007 down here is the fourth wheel on this alliance. And if GV77 can help them take this circle, that will also put MX in more trouble, because it just means that there's another opponent that's generating a ton of points. And that's why you can see MX, even now, they're trying to milk every point they can. They're trying to hold this circle for now when OWR cannot help. And it's probably going to be pretty close for MX, actually. But I do think they're in trouble just because we still have 3 hours to go. And I feel like eventually 007 is going to own that southwest corner circle.
We do have on that upper left corner, I know you mentioned GV77. AB is 5 minutes away from their flag completing and touching the Supreme Spire. GV77 does have a flag that's trying to build, but no one's building it just yet. So AB is in front here to get that first touch on the Supreme Spire in this map.
You could see that. Yeah, this is who would have bet? Who would have thought that AB, out of all the different packs in the game, would have that contention? Would not even contention at this point. They will be the first pack to touch it. Now the question is, will they be able to swarm it down, or will GV77 send all their open field there to make sure that they won't be able to take the structure?
So AB is from Kingdom 266. Go ahead, Pato.
Oh, the flag
flag's
is going down.
Yeah.
And they're from 2677.
They're from 26. No, they're from 2666, which I had not heard of this kingdom, but this is the 75th biggest kingdom in the game, and they have 1.3 trillion KP. So, like, a very legit kingdom. I just hadn't heard of them before.
That is a huge amount of KP for being 75th in power. So, I mean, they have been putting up a good fight. They still have a touch point on the Supreme Circle. And that's going to be the interesting part, is that AB can snipe the Supreme Circle if they want to. But it looks like they're going to try to get the first occupation and then probably, you know, circle back to that Supreme Circle. But you can see that GV77 is sending everybody here. And if it's going to be a full force from GV77, it's going to be hard for AB to push through them, even as a very decent kingdom themselves.
And while that's going on, AB does have a couple players back on that circle trying to swarm it down. There's one player swarming it now, not going to get it. There's two more players starting to come down. So we could see a circle flip here because there's so much focus in that upper area for the Supreme Spire. So a lot of this like kind of tug of war, push and pull. I'm going to go here, but then you're going to go here, but then I'm going to go there type deal. So really nice kind of ebbs and flows here. In this map setup,
because if this is going to be the first points AB gets, that's actually a very painful swarm for that 90 million power player. Shout out to them for trying, but it does look like there are, like, you know, a couple marches here. It's Duncan, Lion over here as well. It looks like they sent their lower powered players here. There's a 79 million power player with, you can see they only have 3 marches left, just swarming down the structure. GV77, they are sending some.
This is a crazy swarm, dude. The capacity on these buildings is 3 million troops. So I feel like you have to rally
like
this.
That's like swarming a fort. That's so painful.
Yeah, that's too painful. Look at this. This is brutal.
And they have reinforcements too. The thing about it is, I believe, can they just fully stuff this like one by one? Like, this player is literally just stuffing it. They're not even open fielding. They're like, okay, you could. Our Heraclius Garrison is probably really good.
Let me take a look. Yeah, you can. You can put multiple. You can put multiple marches in this. Eric Pro has all 5 of his marches in this thing. So.
Oh my goodness, that is so painful.
Big miscalculation here by AB for sure.
65 million power. They just lost 10 million power in that single swarm. Oh my goodness. What did I just see? They're losing so much power. These players are not going to be able to play the rest of the match.
This is going to be a dirty report. I'm curious to see what this report is going to look like once this is done.
We could see it. We could see it now. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
This is going to be disgusting.
Wow. That is 97 million kill points to 32 million. A 1 for 3 trade, 1.6 million deaths to 5 million deaths for AB's side.
Oh my gosh.
And some of these players, that is going to be the Supreme Strife for them. Now, the thing that I was thinking about is, when you're out of troops, what do you do? Because even in Ark of Osiris, you could gather. There's no...
You can build, right?
You could
if you
build,
still have some
that's
troops
true.
left, you could build. Yeah.
You could build. But, it's really interesting. I guess provisions here would be really hard to implement, to be honest, because the points per minute, how would you, like, it'd be like X amount of points per provision, but then what if everyone just starts gathering instead of open fielding?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but yeah, this is really, really interesting, as that was just like an absolutely masterclass of why you fill your garrison instead of, you know, just open fielding. AB, they are now touching the Supreme Spire, but GV77 body blocking it with their open field marches, and they are minus 2-3 players now for the game because of that swarm that just happened. What do you think of the state of the map right now? Brian?
Well, Turk is looking pretty strong in the southwest corner right now, and so that is both helping MX and hurting them because only one of them can advance, I think. But MX is still holding strong. You know, AO77 just sent a rally at this circle, but it was unassisted. AO77 has got a range line set up here to try and wear down MX in that way, which is not a bad idea, actually, to use your range in this way. But for the moment, MX's allies are doing well enough elsewhere on the map to allow MX to have control right here. And I think it's going to be a long 3 hours for MX, but, you know, this may be the most comfortable they are for the next 3 hours, or they just are actually in a pretty good position.
This is a bad place to AFK, by the way. You're just getting pelted down by range.
And you're taking deads.
You're taking deads. I was actually just thinking about that when we were looking at that middle fight, because I saw one player and I'm like, we have like a dedicated, I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of them now. We have Mr. Siege, one of the YouTubers, shout out to him. We have Phil and 1093. Like, there might be some cases here where, like, I mean, they might not be large enough to afford those deads, but where some of these Siege players might be able to make some kind of an impact in some of these Supreme Strifes. I do just have a quick update from the last map that we were looking at from 60 GT. It is starting to cool down a little bit. GT does control the Supreme Spire, and then the shenanigans between 60 GT, WTF, and Kong are still going on at the circle.
We'll check into the map.
Who has the circle right now, Kong?
Kong still, yes.
Yep.
We'll check into that map in about 10 minutes here as we start to see things settle down. We're talking about the first hour is always the craziest, even during KVK. And usually it's going to be like the first day, but because it's open field deads, and that's going to be how the limiting factor for a lot of these players, you could see that it's only like the first hour, and then a lot of these players are pretty low power. You could see 95 million power. Okay, a lot of these players from AB are actually super powerful still. 106, but these players are, you know, the top of the top teams. We could go over down to MX and AO77 and see that they're going to be lower power as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see, like, especially in this bottom side where these are the lower powered accounts. It'll be really interesting to see, like, how much fighting, as you can see the arrow tower line is continuing to creep up, and this is going to be how they start making space for themselves. And I think 60MX are going to have to decide, do we go into this murder ball or not? It looks like they're deciding to go in. They're tired of getting pelted down by Siege, and this is going to be their hold, 60MX's hold against AO77. AO77 now responding with a murder ball of their own, and even though these guys are low power, they're like, this is too much. We need to make sure we make some space for ourselves for this Supreme Circle.
Yeah, very interesting fight here for MX. Tired of sitting around. They were actually running a unassisted rally on one of AO77's flags as well a moment ago. So it does kind of sort of feel like MX assesses that they have more reserves than AO77 here, and they're going to try to wear them down a little bit. I will say that as this is happening, in the center at the Spire, AB77 has actually blocked GV77 from taking the Spire. Like, the flag building of AB77 was good enough that they have, for the moment, blocked GV77 from attacking the Spire, although GV77 now is finding a way to get there. Yeah, Rally coming in on this Spire now though from AB. Looks like an Attila Subotai rally. It's gonna be tough. This is tough. They got to keep this rally up somehow. Believers coming in too. I am hearing in the chat that we have lost our volume. They can't hear us in the chat.
Oh, that was me. That was my fault. But yes, you could see that.
We're back. We're back.
We are back. But you could see that the Supreme Spire was defended by GV77. The Swarmers from AB were not able to swarm it down in time. The Believers just... It was funny because GV77 were kind of essentially escorting the Believers in so it could heal. But what a hold from GV77, and that's probably going to be the last assault of AB as the flag of GV77 is 4 minutes away.
Yeah, somebody in the chat said that AB is cooking. I think that there was just way too many ingredients in that soup that they were trying to brew. They just had to do way too much to try and take that Spire.
It was a good attempt, though. They were very close. They were very close there,
for
like sure.
1 HP. It was like 1/10 health. The Believers started pouring in. And that's the thing. You have to control each of the quadrants here to make sure the Believers don't come in. GV77, they had control of that bottom left side, allowing the Believers of that bottom left side to go through.
Look, I still think AB can make it difficult for GV77 to take this Spire. They might not be able to get it themselves, but, you know, like you just said, there's a lot that GV has to do to take this Spire. It's going to be interesting to see if AB can just, like, harass the crap out of GV for the next 10 minutes. I'd love to see it.
The question is now, if you're AB, and that's going to be the interesting part is because even though there's allies, even though there's teams, at the end of the day, it's about your pact. It's about making it through. If you're in this situation against GV77, you have 0 points, even though you've been very competitive. Do you continue to fight and be the thorn on the side of GV77? Or do you like say, you know what, we tried our best, we're gonna call it quits and allow GV77 to go and control the rest of the map? Perhaps, you know, swing the outcome of Turk, swing the outcome of 60MX on the bottom side.
Yeah, I mean, you know, WTF, they had a very similar choice on the other map, and WTF chose to go elsewhere and try to advance. I think in both cases, these are like pretty good teams, AB and WTF, who just got a very tough draw to be in a corner with two of the strongest packs in the game. I think AB probably will keep playing as the day goes on. I think it's almost too late for them to like change plans and actually try to advance. So they're sort of just in the troll spot. They're in the troll seat here, and the troll seat can be pretty fun.
That is true. That is true. And, you know, if you have the power, might as well. If you have the power, might as well. As long as you don't get over that 10 million deads, it won't affect if you bought the bundle. But you can see that if you see March's sad facing back home, they actually did not buy the $50 bundle. That's how it works. Because the $50 bundle, I believe, You have unlimited teleports. Your marches instantly teleport back, and you get the extra 5 million dead capacity. So
yeah, I mean, you've got to buy that thing. If you're not buying that thing, then your team is not trying to win this thing, is what I would say.
Yeah,
unlimited TPs is huge.
Unlimited TPs was so interesting to play with, because I remember I was building flags, and after I'd build a flag, I'd just teleport to each flag. And it's essentially just an Uber for my marches, just getting a ride straight from the teleports, just 4 teleports to each flag. But yeah, you can see there's another attempt from AB on the right side here to try to get to this Spire, and it is half health, but GV are around. The believers again on this left side are going to be the problem.
I guess they can both swarm it and just like hope for the last hit.
GV77 still not touching. They have 40 seconds left, but yeah, I think GV77 are going to be able to, after this AB attack, are going to be able to swarm down this Spire here.
Yeah, I'm seeing Mr. Hope in the field for GV77. I sort of forgot about Wild Lion and Mr. Hope for a moment. With their 2 billion power each, if GV77 wants to take Supreme Strife very seriously, all that power that those 2 players have could be a very big deal down the road. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that as we watch GV77 here, we are watching the favorites to win this thing?
In terms of power, it's going to be very, very tough for teams to compete against players that kind of have that seemingly endless amount of power with Wildline and Mr. Hope. I think, though, it'll come down to the commitment of their opponents. If 60MX, for example, wants to commit, if 2489 or the other top teams, JSTs of the world, the other top kingdoms, if they really want to commit into this, they can. And the thing that's interesting too is sometimes, as we were talking about, the Diplo can be unfavorable. So that's going to be the big question mark, is how much will Diplo go into this? As you can see, GV77 were able to take the Supreme Spire. It came down to a Mr. Hope swarm, and they were able to take it. They have, the point lead here, as they are up by they are up to 16.3k.
And actually, if you go to the circle in the northwest corner, it looks like AB's trying to swarm that circle again.
Ooh, there you go.
Northwest, yep. Yeah.
AB trying to swarm down the circle yet again.
I hope those are large players.
Boy, I wish they would just pin a rally. If they could have just pinned a rally on this thing. But they're gonna. Looks like they're gonna get it this time.
That's a good call out though, Brian. It is going to be rather hard to pin and anchor rallies in Supreme Strife.
No, that's true. You really can't pin a rally, can you?
You have no starting zones. Yeah, it's going to be really difficult. I mean, you could do it for like a minute or two, depending on where your territory is, but it's going to be really difficult to be able to pull those off.
Look at how close the structure is. They have so many marches coming through, though. Will they be able to reinforce it in time? They are pouring
Donna
in.
Dread coming in.
Donna Dread just coming clutch for GV77. Well, this is a very painful swarm for AB, and a pretty painful hold for GV77 as the structure gets lower and lower and lower. There is yet another GV77 player. They are getting super, super low. Will they be able to get in the structure? I can already hear the voice comms. Get in the structure. Get in the structure. Heraclius right next to the structure. Will they be able to reinforce the garrison in time? I think the answer is yes. Oh my goodness. Look how close this is.
Oh my gosh, these reports are going to be nutty. Oh my lord.
The greatest Eleanor garrison in the history of the world we just witnessed.
That was crazy. AB putting their whole Supreme Strife on the line for this swarm, seemingly. GV77 just pouring marches in there, but it looks like AB are first to the open field. They are swarming down the marches, going into the structure. But somehow, some way, GV77 are still somehow finding a way into the structure. It's getting super low. 1 HP. Is there a march? Is there a hero march to get in there? There is. They're just diving into this. Will they be able to get it? AB able to take the Supreme Circle after that swarm. Oh my goodness, that report is insane. 5.5 million deaths to GB77, 7.5 million deaths to the AB side. It was costly, but they were able to get the structure.
Oof. Oh boy.
Not a bad trade all in all. I mean, it
looked
a lot worse. It looked a lot worse than that.
yeah.
I think initially it was a lot worse, but once that structure gets lower and lower and lower in terms of troop capacity, then the swarm starts trading positively.
Yep. And it was an Eleanor, which we know is not the greatest against the swarm. So
we can say she's the worst. She's literally the worst.
It definitely helped out there, trade wise.
But in terms of the trade, look at the power of some of these players. 69 million power, 99, 104, 134, 84, 76. These players are definitely traded a lot of their open fielding. Some of these players probably going down to 3, 4, 3, maybe even 2 marches at this point due to that swarm. And now they do have to hold against GV77. That's going to be pretty hard.
Even on the GV77 side, we are seeing the power start to drop. Eric Pros down to 96 million, down to Dreads down to 95. We've seen Irvine doing a lot at that circle, and Irvine is down to 82 million power at this point.
Yeah, it's... There are some GB players that are hurting as well. Now the question is, do you train for this event? For example, if you make it to the semifinals, if you make it to the finals, do you train up to that 152 million, 200 million power? That's going to be the commitment that we'll have to see from these champions, from these teams that do want to take it seriously.
I mean, we can talk about what they're playing for here. The rewards themselves are largely cosmetic, but one of the cosmetic rewards is a brand new castle skin. They call it a customizable castle skin. And so that's probably going to be a very good flex to have that castle skin showing that you won the original Supreme Strife. At the same time, with the changes that have come to this game recently, with 960's leaders retiring and, you know, a lot of players migrating out of 1960, in many ways, Supreme Strife is a way to put your stamp on things as the new powerhouse in Rise of Kingdoms. We would have to get into these kingdoms' heads to decide if they think that stamp is important or not, whether 1093 thinks it's important, 2377, 2489. But I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, is this going to be like a very big deal or just kind of a medium-sized deal?
I think it's going to be a pretty big deal because from the way that it's looking, like, I think this is a great kind of mix of Ark of Osiris, Osiris League, and also KVK. Where in KVK, it's kind of this interesting, you know, dynamic of Diplo as well as Kingdom Strength, as well as, you know, perseverance and how long you could stay out on the field. This is like 4 hours where you lock in, you try to fight for your structure. And the thing is, Diplo does matter in this, but it doesn't matter as much as KVK because the thing you're aiming for is top 4, right? So as long as you win your ones, as long as you win that 1v1 in your corner, you should be in a relatively good spot. So it's going to be really interesting. And I do think this could be that third game mode where there's Ark Kingdoms, there's KVK Kingdoms, and perhaps we're also going to be seeing teams that focus on Supreme Strife as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And you know, it's a very, this first foray at it especially is like a legit test of which team can figure it out first. It's an unsolved game mode, and so your ability to get really good at it before your opponents get good at it is a really like legit test of how good you are as a team. At the same time, though, it's like in the finals, it's like only one team can win, and if you finish second or third and you support the first place team, then I guess you can also say you won. You can also sort of flex against the teams you beat. And in that sense, I think diplomacy might be like really, really important in this game mode, Plato, where like potentially one side could have like a real advantage going into the finals. But it'll be interesting, to see how we get there, certainly.
Yeah, it's as we were talking though, AO77 were able to take the circle from 60MX. And it looks like they were able to kind of win that one, although OWR is down here as well, supporting AO77. It's going to get pretty dire as this game mode continues here, as AO77's allies, GV77 are winning that top left corner, OWR are winning that top right corner, and now that is trickling down into 60MX AO77 as OWR have some marches here. They have swarmed down this flag of 60MX here. And now we're looking at the points. We were talking about how Turk winning that bottom left side is both good and bad for 60MX. Turk has
terrible for them now.
Has actually surpassed them. Yeah, they've surpassed 60MX. So now it's going to be AO77 that they have to fight for that fourth place spot. And from what it's looking like, OWR are going to be setting everybody down here. So it's going to be really, really tough for 60MX to fight this 1v2.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Turk is that it looks like their opponents, 007, has given up. 007 has disappeared from the map, from what I can tell. So it's almost like Turk has this just guaranteed circle for quite a long time. And that is just really bad news for MX. Really, really bad news that their ally is potentially going to take that fourth spot. Because it's just going to be super hard for MX to outscore AO77. Because at the end of the day, over the next 2.5 hours, AO77 is going to get some time holding the Spire in the center.
That is true. That is true. When your team, when your side, when your allies control that Spire, you could kind of ask them, hey, could we have it a little bit so that we could surpass our opponents in this bottom right corner so that we could get that top 4 spot and kind of have that guaranteed. But to be honest, I think AO77, even without the Spire, they should be able to surpass 60MX here. Just because 60MX, you could see a lot of their players now, 75 million power, 79 million power, 83 million power, 73 million power. The more and more this draws out, the more that they, go into this, the harder it's going to be for them, because every single murder ball fight that they go into at this point is going to be -1 March every time.
Wow.
I'd be curious of how big these players were. I feel like some of these guys are losing troops really fast. Like and it's only been an hour and a half. Like there's still 2.5 hours more. I know this is like the B team, but like, man, the powers kind of drop relatively quick. If you're at that 120 million mark, I feel like you do have to play rather carefully, because you can dip down pretty quick.
What do you think the power level of a player playing this mode should be? I think, because if you want to maximize the amount of deaths you could take, you would need 100 million power in true power, because that's 10 million deaths right there, right? So that would be, how much power would that be? Like 150 million power? Like, what do you guys think?
Brian's better with the metrics and analytics.
Oh no, that's I'm already lost from what Plato said. I mean, like, so how much power are you losing when you take 10 million deaths?
It would be 100 million power.
You lose 100 million power. Okay.
So like 150 million power minimum.
150 minimum to be able to play like aggressive and play normally, right? If you're under 150, especially under 120, like you really have to be careful on your engages.
You're
and
the flag
I
build
think
team.
even
That's what you are.
Yeah,
You're a flag builder
team. and even like some it impacts the strategy. Obviously, we're going to see some of the big hitters as we progress through these rounds, and we're just going to see larger and larger account sizes. But I think that affects the strategy too of like how you will initially build out and like how quick you are to engage. But yeah, I mean, some of these guys are going down pretty quick.
It's the OWR as well as AO77 yet again able to thwart the 60MX murder ball here. And I think that's going to be the story of this bottom right side, is that it's going to be this 1v2 where 60MX are going to continuously just lose these open field fights, especially because their players are just draining power. And it'll come down to this bottom left side where Turk is going to be the only camp on their side that is continuously able to fight, although there is some resistance from AB, but you can see AB getting absolutely rallied down, swarmed down by GV77. I think this Supreme Strife map is completely blown wide open.
I mean, you can't. So basically, it's like really tough to take a bad trade, right? You really don't want to be taking a lot of bad trades. We saw MX retreat from the 1v2 there. Are you saying in general this is like a brand new game mode, or you're saying that like this particular map right now is being decided?
Yeah, this map is looking rather dire for the opponents of GV77, where AB they did have a good fight against GV, but they are starting to lose some flags. We saw OWR already take the map against 3065, and then now OWR as well as AO77 in this bottom right corner, which was the point of contention here, is looking more and more like they actually already surpassed 60MX in terms of points, as we were talking about. So it's gonna get harder and harder for 60MX to advance, as they're currently 5th place.
If anything, Turk should go and help their allies 60MX to just be, you know, a real ally. But the problem is for Turk, it would be against their own interests to go and help 60MX.
That's the interesting part, right? Where you have your own pact interests, where I guess in some sense of the way, it might actually just be a non-aggression treaty. It's like, we're not going to attack you guys, we're allies, quote unquote, but if you're Turk, you kind of don't want to help out because you're pretty much guaranteed to make it through if 60MX don't generate any points.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting to me so far, the most interesting thing I've seen so far, is the fact that people are getting worn out much faster than I expected. Which I guess makes sense because like people just don't have enough power to absorb 10 million deads. But that just means that in later rounds, there's just going to be a lot of maneuvering. There's, you know, because like you almost don't want to fight hard at the beginning. You know, if all you have as allies are non-aggression packs, and you know 4 advance, but you really only care about yourselves, then it's almost like you play really cautiously at the beginning. You get some territory, and then you sort of like see where the wind is blowing and what opportunities you have. Because like if your side is winning, maybe you can just like ask for holding the center sometimes. Or if you're AO77 in this case, maybe they could have flagged over to Turk and taken the Turk circle at some point. Yeah, there's just a lot of maneuvering that's going to be going on in this thing.
A lot of maneuvering, a lot of potential betrayal, a lot of, oh, we're busy on our side of the map, so we can't help you.
Yep.
It's going to be really interesting, as I think the map on this side is kind of dying down, kind of getting a lot more relaxed. Let's go ahead and check out map B here.
Yeah, so I'm doing some scouting over here, and was a reason why we weren't going over here, guys, because it looks like WTF is essentially tapping out. They did something funky with their flag line, which I couldn't really understand at first. But it pretty much, after a few minutes had passed and me watching, it was pretty much them kind of tapping out. So they kind of I guess, popped the flag near the base and kind of deactivated that flag line that was creeping up towards that circle against Kong. And then a few minutes went past, and then I noticed that they kind of deactivated all of them altogether. So WTF is essentially out of this. The action now is going down to that southeast circle where 60 GT and 1316 are trying to bail out ZOW, their ally here. 60 AP and Kong having a pretty good hold on the circle. And 60 GT now with their flag line now starting to touch or approaching that circle of 60 AP is now kind of back in this thing. And this is probably where the majority of the action is going to remain. I guess we have to see what goes on with the Kong circle. They're still kind of outliers. We saw, and maybe that was why WTF said, you know what, we're just going to go and attack Kong because we're just going to pull out of this thing. So I think we will see that Kong, 60 AP, ARB, and I guess that's it now. It's an alliance of 3 against an alliance of 4 in map B.
You can see that 60 GT, they are approaching the opposite side of the map. They are trying to be just all over the place, omnipresent on this map, they are already actually on the circle here where you can see ZOW have full control of this area. They will be able to swarm down the circle. ZOW will finally have control of this area, and you can see it's 3 different allies. It's 1316, 60 GT, as well as ZOW here, just making sure that ZOW finally start generating points. I believe that is the first point ZOW have started generating, and they will try to surpass 60 AP. They do have some time. They still have about 2.5 hours here before the match ends. And as you were talking about, if you're allied with the person with the Supreme Spire, perhaps you could start building towards that Supreme Spire and generate points that way as well.
Yeah, I think a key here is going to be for this now, I guess, alliance of 3. I'm so confused because the shenanigans that WTF pulled off. So I'm like trying to get my bearings on who's allied with who. But GT, DK39, ZOW, and 1316. So I think the play here for the alliance of 3 now with Kong, 60 AP, and ARB. ARB is still like, and they're still trying to flag out. And I think here where they can relieve some pressure is they're probably going to try to build up as much as they can, and then go and try and cut 60 GT at some point off of the Supreme Spire. And not to say that it's going to be a very tall task to do, but at least it's going to pull some attention away and allow 60 AP to retake this circle, and potentially Kong as well. Even though I think with the point lead now, the alliance of 3 is going to want 60 AP to generate as much points as possible for them to advance, and then they'll probably look to pull in some players from the rest of their allies.
Yeah,
that's an interesting point. Just about the being able to add like additional players, right? Like every team that advances will have the ability to add 5 players to their team for next week. And if we just think about like what WTF decided to do here, for example, their allies have 2 spots right now. Their allies hold only 1 circle, but they're in they have 2 of the top 4 scoring spots. If WTF had supported their allies the whole way, and it allowed 2 of their allies to advance, then potentially 10 players from WTF could have joined these 2 teams and continued to play in the Supreme Strife. And so you do have just options as this goes on.
Ooh, perhaps that could be like a Diplo kind of maneuver where it's like, if you guys keep fighting, we'll pick up X amount of players from your team so that you could kind of continue on in good faith in the Supreme Spire. It's like, oh, you guys are joining part of the legacy. You guys are still essentially fighting just within this team, within Kong or within 60 AP. I think the interesting thing will be, will you want the best players in the game, or will you want players that you've played with, for example, other players from your kingdom? I think that's going to be an interesting aspect as well. You know what I mean? Where you could kind of try to make a super team with a bunch of high-powered players from all over the place, or you could try to, if you're 60 GT, pick up some of the players from the 60MX team, for example. Try to pick up some other players, or some other players that weren't on the team for this initial run. So that's going to be an interesting component as well. Do you want the continuity of your kingdom, or do you want kind of the best of the best within the game?
And I think also it's like, to that point, like it's gonna open different realms of recruiting, right? Like if say you want to go for like the best of the best, like say like for example, 60GT wins and GV77 loses. Not that they're on the same map at the moment, but say they want to pull a player like Mr. Hope and Wild Lion, who he's been in 2377 for the entirety of his Rock career, and now he gets a taste of what it's like to be in 60GT, because obviously he's going to want to continue to compete in something like Supreme Strife, and now he's going to get like this different taste of what it's like outside of 2377. So I'm super curious to see how the functionality of Supreme Strife is going to affect kingdom building going forward, and the recruiting tactics as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like a taste test of migrating into KVK.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much else going on in this map. It's just going to be this bottom right corner. But it looks like 60GT, they have full control of that side. It looks like 60GT is now pushing into this top right corner, where they're going to try to help out their allies, DQ39 perhaps, try to take back this circle, but I think that's going to be really tough for DQ39 to come through. They have 0 points. It's pretty much halfway through the match, and throughout this whole time, Kong has been able to generate points. But yeah, it looks like they're going to try to take this top right corner here. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what happens, and I think one thing that's interesting too is that the flags, they burn a lot faster, but you can still back flag. You can see that there's a flag here, they're back flagging here, just trying to create as much time as possible for themselves to generate as much points as possible.
I know these are the early stages and this is just the first event, but I think like one thing as I'm seeing here, especially with like the your unlimited flags and stuff like that, I think I would like to see a little bit more choke points on the map, potentially. Again, we're gonna have to see how the later stages play out, but maybe for like the initial rounds where they're gonna cool off a little bit more, maybe there's more choke points that Lilith can implement into the maps, just to kind of you're gonna get some of those more extended fights, because when it's wide open like this, it's really about kind of a little bit more about power in the open field presence. So maybe a little bit more choke point potential in the earlier stages, and then again, obviously, as we progress and we start to see these heavyweights really throw down, I'd be interested to see how the map kind of plays out that way.
That is true. A lot of the Kingsland choke points, I feel like, are from those random camps and keeps that are in Kingsland. There's no camps and keeps in this mode. I don't even think there's really any maps, to be honest. It's just a wide open space.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, there's it's not necessarily a choke point, but it's like a barrier mountain right to the northeast part of this circle, where 60GT is flagging down.
Oh yeah.
But like that's really it. That's the only thing that I've kind of seen that can act as some of the terrain really like affecting this, and it's such a small mountain too. It's like 1 or 2 flags worth.
It's like a
but yeah.
I'm going to go the other direction on this one as far as choke points and stuff. I think I really like the fact that it's completely wide open, because at the end of the day, this is a very different game mode than KVK. I mean, KVK really is about fighting in the same place for an extremely long period of time. Both of you guys just went through that as participants in that absolutely massive 960 versus 1093 war, where, I mean, I remember watching Dan's stream for a while, and it was like his city was in a certain spot. He never really teleported. If the fight was at his flag, he had like a very quick walk to the fight. If the fight was north of him, he had to sort of walk around a rock barrier and get to that spot. And it was like hours and hours of doing that, fighting at the exact same place. When you have a map like this with no choke points, where flags burn down in 6 or 7 minutes, the battle lines change. you have to teleport around, you have to make decisions about where to send your army, and that is completely affected also by what your allies are doing and what the scores are. I think, to have us fighting in the same spot in this map is like not that great. And by the way, we are actually fighting the same spot. We're fighting around these circles like all the time, which is a great place to fight because cities are not that close to circles.
This is true. Yeah, you can't like insta fill the circle, and the refreshes are going to take a little bit of time. So those are all good points too. And I will say, like, to that point too, it is refreshing to, in that same right, to not be stuck on choke points and having to walk around the mountain and stuff like that. So it is refreshing in that same right too, 100%.
I will say, in that KVK against 1093, even against the KVK in 2377, to your point, we'd be in the same spot for hours. I think I had a one stream, an 8-hour stream, where I was fighting in the same spot the whole stream. And we would name places like Death Mountain or like, it's crazy how long and how attached you get to a spot. I think, yeah, like as we were talking about, this is only a 4-hour event, so the map being wide open means that there's a lot of different touch points that can be had, because there's no inhibiting factors in terms of buildings, except for a couple like hills here and there. My question is, what do you think of the 4-hour time limit of this game mode of Supreme Strife? Like, do you think 4 hours is a good amount of time? Again, this is the first time we've had a full bracket of this, and of course this is going to be kind of a bad sample size, because this is going to be the first, I guess, iteration, because it was based off power, right? If I remember correctly, registration was based off the top powerful teams or top powerful packs. I think going forward, we're going to be seeing a lot more competitive matches as time progresses, but so far, from what you've seen, what do you think of the 4 hours? And I guess, what do you think of Supreme Strife overall?
Right. You want to go?
I think 4 hours sounds about right. I actually, before I watched it today, I was actually thinking, I wonder if this should have been a 6-hour event instead. Just because this does feel like a pretty hardcore event where people are really going to commit quite a bit of energy to it. And so 4 hours felt a little bit short, just in terms of like, that's a bad Kingsland, right? A Kingsland that lasts for 4 hours is a bad Kingsland. So I was thinking it could maybe be a couple hours longer, but then now that I see that people are getting worn out, like prior to 4 hours lasting, I would have to say it's like the absolutely correct time. I would never want it to be shorter. And if the end of it's going to be slow, then just have it be 4 hours.
Let's actually go over to map A, because this is looking rather settled right now. Again, the only thing that's not in 60GT's control, or not in 60GT's allies' control, is going to be this top right corner, but they're slowly building towards it, but the back flags of Kong is making that pretty slow. So we're going to go ahead and go back to the GV77 map. I'm curious as to how the next couple of rounds are going to go. Because as we were talking about, this was based off power. You could see a lot of the top teams here, GV being at 11.2 billion power. That's like pretty much an A-seed kingdom right there.
50 players, yeah.
Just within their 45, 50 players. So, like, I'm going to be curious as to see, like, especially in the next couple of rounds, like, how this goes. But we could see GV77, they are continuing to burn back AB. Dirty Dan, do you have any notes for this map right now?
Don't. I've started to now scout around on other maps, so I apologize there. I should have given you guys the heads up.
Wait, you're able to view the other maps?
Yes, I'm currently looking at C, and I'm gonna keep making my way through. It takes me some time because I have to figure out who's fighting who. But because again, So for chat, just so you guys know, like the allies to us and like the diplomacy and all that is rather muddied. So we kind of have to figure it out on the fly. So kind of looking through that stuff here, and also looking for clarification if we can go and view those from our wonderful community managers.
As we show the code here, this is going to be the gift code. The redeem code is in the bottom left of the screen. QBIANI7TN7. Again, QBIANI7TN7. I'm curious as to what the gift is. I'm curious as to what you get from that code, but as we look at the map here, it looks like AO77 still have full control of this bottom right circle that was contested by 60MX. 60MX, as we were talking about, the power of their players are very, very low. We have 75 million power, 67 million power. I mean, there's 197 million power over here, but again, it's gonna get to that point where it's like, how do we open field against these troops when you have AO77 just on the field here? I think this 197 million power player is gonna solo fill this. As we start to see a rally come in, it is a Asher Bonapal with Zhuge Liang. Backup garrison, it looks like there's a John, but that Jan just got insta-swarmed by the attack marching marches from AO77. And this flag looks like it is going to go down.
Yep. Nice burn there for AO77. Getting what looks like to be the last laugh against MX. MX certainly looked strong here early on. Pretty interesting team here with MX. I thought at first that it was going to be a lot of 1960 players, but actually it's quite a few players from many kingdoms. And one reason for that is that obviously with some of the leadership from 960 retiring, a lot of players did migrate out. And on the other map, one thing I did notice is that some of those players, some of your old teammates, Plato, were on that 13-16 team. And I think that's another team that we didn't talk about too much, but that is probably going to be a very strong team in this as well. And look at this, on this map that we're looking at now, it's 007 that holds the Supreme Spire right now.
It is 007.
Okay, so
they are generating that 10 points per second. So they do have Supreme Spire. It looks like they are trying to get 007 to pass Turk. Now the question is, do they have enough time for that though? They are generating double as many points as Turk, or twice as much points as Turk.
I think they certainly do. We can do some quick math here. It's 60 points a minute. It's 60 points a minute, and they've got like 130 minutes to go. So they would gain, actually, so let's see, do I have that right? It's 60 points per minute. Yep. No.
It is, no, it's not. It's
300. It's 300 points per
minute.
Yeah, 300 points per minute. They've got about 130 minutes. So yeah, they can easily pass Turk. They will generate 39,000 points.
I'm pulling up my calculator.
Yeah. There's 300 minutes, 300 points per minute, and 130 minutes left. So they're going to gain 39,000 points if they hold this Spire the whole time.
Isn't it double though? Isn't it 600 points per minute? Because there's 60 seconds in a minute. So 60.
Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. You're right.
I'm like, it is very early in the morning, so our
that's what
not correct.
That's what Turk will be gaining. Turk will gain 39,000 points. 007 will gain twice that much, which is 39,000 points more, and that will easily give them enough to move into to fourth place, actually.
So GV77, all four of their allies should make it through them.
Yeah. Yep. And we were talking about like who do you add to your team? Do you add your own teammates, or do you add super players from other kingdoms? The way I would rank it is top tier. Your first choice to add are allies who you make deals with for them to keep fighting. Not really relevant on this map, but potentially relevant on the other map. You know, make deals with your allies and reward them with those spots. I think that's number one. Number two, you recruit super players from other kingdoms. And then honestly, at the bottom, third tier, you recruit other players from your own kingdom. And I just think that's because like you already have the leadership in place, and you already have like your core players who are like really, really important. So to bring in some hired guns from outside, I don't really think that affects the continuity of what you're doing at all.
That's true. That is true. I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be like an arms race, you know what I mean? Where half the teams are going to be eliminated, so there's going to be a lot of good players out on the market for a team, and then there's going to be offers. It's like another free agency period in a way. It's like, okay, where is this player going to go? Are you going to go to this team? Are you going to go to that team? And that's going to be really, really interesting to see how the teams shape up. And once that final hits, you know, what the composition of the teams are going to be.
Yeah, the finals are going to be super interesting, right? And just seeing like what, like who gets let's say a team like OWR doesn't make it to the finals, right? So who do you recruit from OWR to your team? Do you recruit their war leads, or do you recruit their biggest whales? Because I mean, as much as a team like GT or GV77 might have all the war leads they need, if you can recruit like a top tier war lead who just makes good observations as the map goes on, I honestly think that's more valuable than just recruiting the biggest whale.
That's true. Imagine recruiting a great build team, for example, just insta building flags. That'll be pretty interesting to see how things shape up. It looks like the two maps. Yes, sorry, Dirty Dan, what's your point?
Go ahead. And I was just gonna say, even like just trying to figure out like, do you want like what kind of garrison players, what kind of rally leads? Because like as these maps progress, like I'm sure like we're gonna see these maps really full. There's gonna be a lot of touch points to start to cover as we progress through this tournament. So I think, I mean, obviously a lot of these counts are at the top 1%. Everyone's probably gonna have a garrison, but you're gonna want the key garrisons for sure, and you're gonna need a lot of them. So I think as that progresses, you're gonna have to keep that in mind too.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. That's a very good point. I mean, we didn't see it today. We didn't see like massive touch points today, but like Plato, when you guys were fighting in the Pioneer event, I forget who you were against in your corner.
I believe it's 2218.
2218, okay. But it's like you guys had flags that were like touching. You guys are basically like parallel building towards the Spire.
Yep.
And so it was like every flag was a touch point.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, we see how trades matter, right? Because you get worn down if you take bad trades. And if you have a crappy garrison that's not full, and the enemy just like exploits that by just like swarming you down over and over again, getting a good trade, it's not about the territory, it's about the trade. Then you're like in really bad shape, right? You're in really bad shape. So you do want to have like a ton of garrisons, and you want to have people who are willing to use their garrison instead of use a march in the field, and who are just like very responsive to what is needed by the team. Yeah, I think all that's a very big, who you recruit is going to be a super big deal, I think.
It looks like this map is kind of settled here. Dirty Dan, is there any other maps that we should look around for?
So the only other map that I think has some potential is map D. I've been trying to figure out, I think our buddy Ray was in here talking about, I think he's playing on one of these teams, DS, and it sounded like they pushed them into their starting zones. But now as I'm looking at it, there's a fight for the middle where DS is fighting 3 different packs. So I'm trying to unravel what's going on here. So if anyone from chat, Rave's there. If you guys
I think Rave was in there earlier.
I don't know if they're doing this just for fun. That's some quite expensive fun, I should say. And we did just slightly miss a little bit of a swarm on the Supreme Spire. So I'm not really sure what's going on here, but this is definitely some of the better action, I think, throughout the rest of the maps that are available for us.
I'm curious how these guys still have troops. That's
just
my
so
question.
chat knows, the other map they think that we were looking to cover, E, featuring 489 and JST no showed, so that map is just totally out of the picture at the moment.
as we continue through the Supreme Spire here. DS, as you were talking about, fighting LLN and DRGN, or Dragon.
Yeah, I've seen them fighting. One's was kind of creeping down and coming to fight a little bit too. You can see them number 3 on the point leaderboard. LLN on the point leaderboard, obviously fighting them right now. And I guess, I mean, it's like the top 4 fighting amongst each other. So I would assume this is just for fun, but again, this is some expensive fun that they're expensing here.
They're like, all right, let's limit test. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see what could happen. So from the first half of this match, what do you think? What's the learnings that you guys got? Like, what's the takeaway that you guys got from this first, I guess, iteration of true, meaningful gameplay in Supreme Strife, and what can teams take away for future matches?
I think building is going to be more important. I mean, again, I've always thought that building is one of the unsung parts of Rise of Kingdoms. It doesn't get enough like attention. Like there's no guides on it. It is quite difficult to implement. I think I saw in one of the Q&As with the developer, someone requested like a sandbox type deal, which would be really cool, that you can kind of play around a little bit more freely on maps and try to figure things out. But in this too, like, just again going back to the point of like builds, I think like your opening builds are important. Like, do you want to engage right away, or do you want to just sprint for a structure? We saw some of the teams implement it. So I think the builds coming out of the gate are going to be very important. Who can get the swarms off on the builds? Very similar to any kind of Kingsland opening. You can imagine like all these maps are essentially like a Kingsland opening with some circles layered in throughout them. So the builds and the priority on the builds, like optimizing your flags, making sure that they're building as fast as they possibly can, is going to be one of the more important factors going forward.
By the way, I see GT Redline in DS as well. So I see Redline playing in here.
DS is an interesting team. DS is definitely an interesting team. There's not a lot of really strong English-speaking packs, I would say, but from my experience this year, looks like it's largely a 2563 led pact. And I did fight against 2563 in Kingsland a few months ago, and they were a very, very strong open field team. Toughest open field opponent that I fought this year, with a lot of very good whales with excellent accounts. It looks like they've added players from 3092 to this team. You've got Redline on this team. I saw Jeansy in here, a couple other players from 1029. So this looks like, one of the better English-speaking teams at this point. I think it'll be very interesting to see who else they can add on. I think there's probably a lot of talent that they can bring in as this thing goes on. But, one thing, going back to what we were talking about with the terrain, that I will note as we're watching this sort of open field fight at this Spire, is that there are a lot of players in this game, and certainly this was true for 2563, who really like to fight against a mountainside. They love to be against a mountainside, and they fight a lot better when they're at the mountainside and their marches don't fan forward, right? In an open map like this, it's a lot different. You don't have that comfort zone of the mountainside type of fighting. And so I think some players will be better with this format, and some players are probably going to be a whole lot worse.
Great point. As there's a rally coming in on this Spire. This is really expensive fun that these guys are going in. Oh my gosh.
So did we figure out the Diplo situation for this map? Are these guys just allies fighting for fun? Is that what we kind of came to?
That's what it sounds like from
yeah, because they're in first. DRGN is in second place, right? So DS is in first place, DRGN is in second place, LLN is in fourth place. So these are all kingdoms that are, I think these guys are all allies, honestly.
They just open field fighting for the fun of it here.
fun and for some of the the viewing time as well. I'll go back to just
shout out to these guys.
real quick to Brian's point. I've known 2563 for a long time, and I've watched them progress, and they actually just had a really good Osiris League run too. So definitely one of these teams that I think they're like a little bit more of like a mid A seed. But they do put on some really good shows in KVKs, and I am going to be looking out for DS here moving forward in Supreme Strife for sure.
As we look at this Supreme Spire here getting swarmed down, the rally did die though, so it is going to be a painful swarm, especially with all the blue marches around this Supreme Spire. They should be able to reinforce it. They should be able to hold it. And it looks like this is going to be for a fun match here.
See report too if you want to check that out.
Dan, did 1093 not make a team for Supreme Strife?
There's a bunch of players that are kind of spread out throughout some of the teams. We're free to play Kingdom, so there's not a lot of potential there for us. So
that is interesting. I mean, certainly a lot of leadership talent in 1093 that perhaps is not participating in this. I guess I was hoping that they were going to be part of, one of those strong English-speaking teams that could come together. I was just very curious to see, like, if we had some really strong English-speaking packs and they advanced further in the tournament, like, who comes together? Like, what does that team ultimately look like? Who are the top players and top groups in the English-speaking communities that, are going to like form up together and do something interesting? So I must say that I am pretty disappointed if 1093 is not going to be a part of this, because they're certainly the center of gravity, I would say, as far as English-speaking kingdoms go. Maybe Plato, you would say the 960 at this point is an English-speaking kingdom, but
we got King Cortex, the English speaker himself. So yeah, I think when I was in the Pioneer stage, everyone was pretty much speaking English. So 960 is pretty much an English-speaking team at this point as well. But I mean, it'll be really interesting to see like how this progresses, how all of these things will transpire. As this map, it looks like DS is absolutely dominating the Supreme Spire here. Is there any other interesting maps, Dirty Dan, that you've been seeing for us to look at, or perhaps?
Yeah, I'm going to check out B real quick. It does look. Let me look at my notes here because all these alliances got my brain jumbled. So we got on map B 1316 and 60GT. It looks like ZOW now has that circle. Oh, they reobtained it. 160GT came in. I think map B is starting to more or less kind of stabilize and die off. It doesn't look like Kong is actively fighting GT up on their corner where the circle is, so they're kind of free burning. And then I'll have to take a couple seconds to get over to map A, where 2377 and company are fighting.
Well, Kong still has their circle, and so Kong is in a good position to hold off ZOW to advance. And I think that's interesting because, we're talking about like, different countries and different, languages. How are they going to coalesce onto certain teams as we advance? I mean, we're looking at a map here on map B with a lot of Korean packs, and most of these Korean packs are not going to advance. And I'm looking at the other maps. I'm looking at like which teams are Korean on other maps, and I'm not seeing like a ton of Korean packs that are advancing. And so a team like Kong, if they can make it through, they can certainly bring in a lot of really good talent for next week. I mean, especially if like JST no-showed this week. I just don't know quite how many Korean kingdoms are going to progress.
Yeah, I'm looking at map A here, and it's pretty much the same state that we left it in. GV77 and company, along with OWR, now kind of pushing back. Who is this? 007. The 007 had that one flag line, and it's slowly starting to get chipped away. Although they do still control the Supreme Spire. So maybe there's something going on there in terms of diplomacy and points and whatnot. I'm really not quite sure. Right? Was it double? Oh no, 007's part of their alliance. Duh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
They're pushing Turk. They're pushing Turk back right now. Yes.
Yeah. I think that map, all of the allies of GV77 should make it through. This map, it's guaranteed that 3 of the allies of 960 will make it through. But DQ39, they will have to capture that Supreme Spire as we're talking about for them to make it through. And that is going to be a long build time. They don't have the fast build time anymore. We are like, a couple hours into this, officially past the halfway mark. So it's going to be really, really tough for them to, try to make it past Kong, especially because they've been getting pushed here. Although there are a lot of 60 GT marches trying to help out, perhaps just trying to get some non-existent KP, because you don't get KP from this game mode, just trying to have some fun with their open field marches. But I think that the interesting part for this will be, will DQ39 be able to take the circle, and will they be able to advance?
There's an interesting wrinkle where, we originally thought, okay, so why do you want to get all your allies through? And one reason to get all your allies through is so that next week, if they're in a hopeless situation, you can say to them, hey, we worked hard for you last week. Please work hard for us this week and keep fighting. But the other side of that is that, sorry, I'm losing my thought here a little bit, but I guess it's that, if they're the enemy, right? Let's say DQ39 advances and they end up being the enemy of 1960 next week. What 1960 can say to them is, hey, we worked hard for you last week as allies. Now you're in a hopeless situation as our enemy. Why don't you just take the next 2 hours off? Why don't you just kind of chill out and not fight hard? So you kind of can generate goodwill in either way.
It could be in a way of hey, just pull your punches a little bit, don't make it too obvious. Just pull your punches. Let the flags progress a little bit. Get some burns. Don't make it so odd. I do like that as we're going forward. There's a lot of potential, and that's what I mean. Let's be real. Some of the best content I've seen from any YouTubers is whenever drama and betrayals and stuff breaks out. So I think the stage is being set here for some really interesting things to start going down in these coming weeks.
Yeah, there's gonna be a manifesto somewhere of oh, this is the truth. This is what happened. It'll be really interesting to watch. But I think one thing though about fighting for your allies is that next week, for example, 60 GT, they could say to whomever they want to ally. Same thing with GV77 is hey, look, if you ally with us, you're going to make it through. Because, our allies here, our allies there, for example, 007, they weren't going to make it through, but then GV77 allowed them to capture the Supreme Spire, allowing them to surpass Turk in terms of points. They could point to that and say, hey, look, this is going to be guaranteed, or we're going to try our best at least to guarantee that you go through to the next round. And perhaps that could be enticing for a better Diplo for the next round.
Diplo wrinkles that are in play here.
So I'm on map B. Is there's
a little bit of fighting going on map E, surprisingly or not, even with the JST no-show. DK18 is currently fighting against 489 with Vita kind of starting to poke through. And interestingly enough, on map E, the Supreme Spire has not been taken yet. So I think again, this might be another situation of them having some fun, because DK18, 489, Vita, and PW67 are all on the top 4 in terms of points. But we are getting a little bit of open field action. And there was a flag that was just swarmed too. 489 swarmed the Vita flag. So not really sure what's going on here.
I'm assuming that with everything going on, it's kind of like an open-ended free-for-all. Mm-hmm. Where they're like, all right, we're just gonna fight our ones. We're gonna fight, for example, 49 versus God, TS versus DK18, VT versus PW67, and then Vita. We're just able to get a free pass to go through. And then now that it's decided who won that 1v1, they're just, you know, just having some fun in the middle here. But as a overview for this map E, we could see the points. DK18 22-18, the people that actually fought 60 GT in the Pioneer event are actually in first place at 32k. 489, they're in second place at 31.9k. Vita is in third at 31k, and PW67 is in fourth place at pretty much 31k as well. And VT, TS, God, and JST have not generated any points. So it looks like the winners of this map are also decided. They just open fielding here for some fun.
49 is certainly an interesting pact in this Supreme Strife event. I think they're definitely in the running to win this thing. They've obviously brought in a lot of pretty big whales from 2975 recently, and you know, some of those players are on this team. I see Jiahan here, and then they've also got
Hello.
very nice to have. And you know, 2489 is very good at Osiris League. They've brought in, you know, more leaders. I mean, I just listed two big time Vietnamese R5s, Jiahan and Min Phuc, that they're adding to what they already have here. And so I think they have a lot of, and then they've got BK Love as the R5 right now. So I think that you have just a lot of very, very strong war leading type voices on this 2489 team. And their power is not as big as 2377, and they don't have that many players above 160 million, but they've got more than most. I mean, they've got more super powerful players than most, and I would imagine they have, you know, like really high-end war leading going on.
Really high-end war leading indeed, and I mean, it'll be really interesting to see as these maps progress, like how each of these teams will just continue to commit, and what would practice even look like for this game mode? Is there even a way to practice for this, or is it just you go in, follow instructions, try to murder ball up as much as possible? Because I'm assuming there's a lot of transferable skills from KVK, but as well as Osiris.
Yeah,
you know, I think go ahead,
Bri.
No, you got it.
I don't know if there's much practice that you can implement. I think, you know, maybe you hop into like custom matches in Arc or something like that, and you work on some of the microing and stuff. And I think maybe here even too, excuse me, where a little bit more advanced play too is just calling out who you're targeting too. I know it's rather tough in murder balls, but as it is like a lot less players on the field, you can kind of pick out and choose who you're targeting in a sense. So like I think that's probably like a direction that you take as a team if you like kind of want to get that practice in per se, and kind of try to stay sharp in between weeks.
That's a really good point about being able to focus fire targets, because there's really like quite a few, like these fights are much smaller than a lot of these players are used to. Mm-hmm. You know, I think the practicing is going to be talking with your allies ahead of time and coming up with plans about what you're going to do on the map, coming up with contingencies about if this happens, then we adjust in this sort of way. Because ultimately what we have here is we have a map where you can build unlimited flags and you have unlimited teleports. And you really don't have that many people on a team. And it's a very big zone. So like when we have a competitive map where both teams are trying to win, like it's you know, up for grabs which side is going to win, I think you're going to have teams teleporting around quite a bit. and they're probably going to be looking for opportunities to teleport on their opponents and switch the momentum in an open field fight, and therefore like force the enemy to have a bad trade, right? You do that enough times, the enemy gets worn down. Or you teleport around, you find weak points in the enemy's defense, you find flags that are half full. I remember watching Plato stream in the Pioneer event, and sometimes he was one of 2 people filling up flags that could have gotten burned. And you just teleport around, find these weak spots, and try to see, maybe you wear down one enemy, maybe you wear down a couple of them. And then you have to factor in the point gain, like who has a chance to advance. Maybe it's only two of your 4 packs have a chance to advance. You should have a plan ahead of time about what the other 2 packs are going to do to like lock in those 2 teams. I think there's just a lot of planning that, and have agreements, have like actual agreements with your allies about what's going to happen halfway through a match. If maybe the third best pack on your team ends up being the team that has the best chance to advance. What are the other packs going to do to help that team advance? Come up with some sort of agreements ahead of time for that. And and have a better game plan than the enemy team has. I think that could take hours. That's not practice, but that could take hours and hours to discuss that stuff.
The layers, the layers and the planning is going to be very, very intense. And especially like I like to that point, Brian, like you need like firm confirmations going into some of these matches, because I mean, as we saw with like the shenanigans on map B with WTF, who just like, you know what, we're out of this, we're going to go attack our allies for some fun since we're getting smashed by 60 GT, so like there's gonna be wrinkles like that, and I'm glad that we saw that on week 1, because it just opens the door to show like there's so many layers to this game mode that can be unraveled. And if you're not careful about your agreements and your wording, and we've seen that in the past before, very recently as well, in some KVKs where some of the agreements on and KVK rewards weren't really set in stone, and things were able to get manipulated, and things happen. So I really like that point, that you really need to make sure that some of these alliances are with your packs, I'm still trying to get this terminology down, is going to be like set in stone.
I'm curious as to what you guys think is the best Diplo situation, because this is a Diplo situation, from what we understand, is it's a free-for-all where you have your 1v1 fight, and if you win that 1v1 fight, you move on. So there's this Diplo situation, but there's also the Diplo situation where it's a 4v4, and essentially whichever pact kind of wins, in terms of whichever alliance of the 4 packs wins, kind of makes it through, because the other allies are able to help out the other pact in a way. What do you guys think is the better Diplo situation? Do you think the 1v1 in the corners to make it through, or do you guys think it's the 4 packs? I guess we could start with Dirty Dan here.
Oh, that's tough. I think kind of like you said, I mean, at least in these stages where you're still looking to progress, like you have to go and win your ones, right? Like you have to go and win your ones and make sure kind of that you're a little bit more set to progress. Because I mean, there is potential where you can just hunker down around a circle and you're gonna progress through this thing. So I think that's a big part of like, you got to just go in and just win that 1v1.
How about you?
I mean,
Brian?
I think it depends on the matchup, honestly. Look, at the end of the day, they are really just fighting for cosmetics here, right? They're fighting for cosmetics, and this event is going to happen more than once. So really, I think everyone should be very sporting about this. I'm sure there's some bad blood between some of the top Imperium kingdoms, but there probably shouldn't be that much bad blood at this point. So if the matchup looks fair, if it looks like, either of the 2 sides could win, then, play it from the start like it's going to be, a 4v4. If there are some maps that are very imbalanced, then maybe at some point you just let 2 teams do a 1v1 and decide who's going to advance. You know, I just think it kind of depends on the map, but really the goal should be to have like some very fun fights, right? I would imagine that's what everyone's goal is going to be here. I mean, in KVK, the rewards are pretty significant, and you know, the biggest reward with KVK is that if you win, then your kingdom grows and you recruit in more talent. Whereas if you lose, your kingdom might die and you can like never play with your friends again. I just don't think the stakes are that high in this Supreme Strife. It's like hard for you to imagine the stakes being that high. So like to the extent that these top Imperiums are already pretty good about creating fair matchups in KVK and just sort of like focusing on having a very good fight, I think you can just do the same thing in this game mode, you know, and just like, yeah, whatever looks like it's going to be most interesting on that given map, just do things that way. But at the same time, I mean, we're talking about betrayals and stuff like that, and you know, one thing we didn't point out is that basically you form a union, you form an alliance with other packs at the beginning of one of these events, but you can dissolve it in 5 minutes. You like there's like a 5-minute delay to dissolve these unions, right?
Yeah.
So like within that context, it's sort of hard to imagine 1v1s being clean. Like how do you ensure that a 1v1 is clean? So yeah, I guess you just play it by ear. But what do you think, Plato?
Yeah, I think I mean, on paper, the 1v1 sound like a good idea, but in practice, everyone has their own intentions to heart, right? For example, if you're in a map with GV77 and AO77, they'll probably want that 4v4 so that they could help out AO77 to progress. I think it depends on the relationships, but to your point about stakes, I think the stakes aren't as high, for example. Like, it's like, oh, we lost, that's okay, we're fighting the best of the best kingdoms. But I actually think the game can be pretty astronomical if you're a kingdom that makes it pretty high up there. Where it's like, it's kind of similar to Ark of Osiris, where, at least for the most part, if you don't have extreme expectations like a 960 or 1093, or like if you make it even top 4 and you get the city skin, that's like a really good migration pitch. Of course, if you're like 1093, 2489, 960, that's like kind of the expectation. But for other kingdoms, that's going to be like a really good push. I think in this game mode, you can potentially make a name for yourself. It's another way to kind of stand out as a kingdom and as a team. And to your point, I think one of the cool things about this game mode is that it's not necessarily kingdom based anyways. It's team based. It's based off of, for example, you said when you lose a KVK, you don't get to play with your friends anymore. Well, in this case, you do get to play with your friends from other kingdoms that, you know, potentially after a kingdom breaks up, you could still make a team and kind of band together and fight together. And I think this is like the only game mode outside of Grand Prix, if you make it based off of power in the top 4 qualifying spots, where you could actually have the freedom to play with other players and perhaps friends that you haven't played with in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly like an insanely good recruiting situation. Like if you have a really good team here and you have just like very good vibes on voice chat, good war leading, and then you also have success in this game mode, and you've got like 5 or 6 players from other kingdoms on your team, on your voice chat, being part of that success. I mean, is there a better situation to recruit someone than that? I mean, I guess it's like it's sort of like KVK, where like sometimes you're with somebody else in your camp and you like work together really well. But like in KVK, like you're recruiting them from that kingdom, where it's like you're kind of like stealing, you're stealing a top talent from your actual allies. Whereas like in this, they're just like they're just a mercenary, they're just a hired gun. You're not really stealing them from anybody. You're just saying like, hey, look how well we worked together. Look how enjoyable this is. Do you want to join our kingdom? You know, that's like a really good recruiting situation for a top group. Like to get to that situation, you have to be a top group in this Supreme Strife. You have to literally be one of the most successful teams, and you have to like actually outplay a 489 or a 2377 or a 2563, whatever it may be. You have to like actually outplay those people so that the vibes are so good on voice that people do want to join you. But yeah, if you can pull it off, you can get like incredibly good talent from this event.
Going back to the map here, 489 is getting pushed by DK18. They are building 2 flags. We have a lot of people teleporting in from 489. They've been kind of focusing on the front against Vita, where they've been successful. They are burning a lot of flags. Vita is also building yet another flag, but 489 are going to be pushed by DK18, and there's going to be a couple touch points here if they don't bring open field soon. DK18 starting to push onto 489's territory. But as you're talking about this, I think now that we've seen the game mode, and this is going to be the top of the top, the thing that we're watching right now, you know how there's Ark of Osiris and then there's like Osiris League? I think this version of Supreme Strife is kind of like the Osiris League version of Supreme Strife. Now the question is
I think it's regular Ark. I think we're watching regular Ark. Like, we're not really watching the real game mode right now. You know what I mean? Like today, we didn't really watch this game mode at its full potential.
I meant like the whole tournament. Like,
okay.
Like this is obviously the preliminary, so it's going to be pretty imbalanced. But once we get to the semifinals or the quarters, the semifinals and the finals, that's where we're going to see, you know, the gameplay definitely heighten in terms of competitiveness. I'm just talking about the overall bracket in terms of how teams were placed into it based off power. How do you think? Do you think this game mode should be available to, for example, you know how there's like a gold Ark of Osiris? Do you think there should be like a silver version of this, or a version that teams could just, or players could just sign up for? Like, how would it be available to the mass? I guess to the Rise of Kingdoms community en masse, because right now it's kind of like a locked thing behind the top 64 teams.
I would love to see it get expanded. I know that some people took issue with the fact that the $50 bundle for this event is like really, really good value, but to get that bundle, you had to be part of one of these top 64 teams. Not knowing Lilith's plans, I would expect that they're wanting to expand this out to like the broader player pool. You know what? They could do something simple, guys, where like if you're in tier 2, you get like you only take 50% deads when swarming and you take 25% deads in the open field, right? Just slow down the rate of attrition so that a player with 80 or 90 million power can play the game mode to the full extent, just as this tier is.
Yeah.
I think you probably have to do it like that, but I definitely think you have to let everybody play this game mode. How can this be just a whale thing? Like that's
true.
That would be really unfortunate if that were the case, right? Because ultimately we want every level of player wants the opportunity to work with people from other kingdoms, and we want the opportunity to play have a 4-hour fun fight for like one day a week. You know, that's like a great situation for a lot of us. So yeah, I think you have to expand it.
Were you guys able to play the Pioneer, Dirty Dan and Brian? Did you have a chance to play?
No, I'm too low power, and yeah, even after getting Truth back after KVK, it's still pretty low. So I know you didn't get that like permadeads in that, I think, but
yeah.
I didn't even cross my mind because like even like looking ahead for like the regular one, I was just like, I'm not gonna have a chance to go in for it anyway. So what's the point? That was kind of my mentality.
That's fair.
I was planning to play it. Like yeah. I just like hearing that it was coming up soon and knowing that I was going to be casting it, I was like, well, I'll at least play the Pioneer event and just sort of get a feel for it and stuff. And so I was just, like sort of just expecting like some people to reach out to me and be like, hey, do you want to be on a team? And it just didn't really happen. And then I mentioned it to some players in my kingdom, and they were like, well, you have to have 110, 120 million power, or you just like won't even be considered for a team. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not playing then. It's just like one of those things.
Yeah. I will say that when I did play the Pioneer stage, in my opinion, the most fun part of KVK is a Kingsland opening. And I think like when I played, at least the first time I played, it kind of felt like a Kingsland opening where you kind of build out from your starting zone. The buildings really matter. You want to make sure you build out your flags. You have the open field battles that are, contesting the structures, making sure you have territory. It was actually very, very similar to a KVK opening. And that's kind of like it was kind of like a really fun feeling until it started dying down, like 2 hours, 3 hours. Essentially the time period we're in, and it started dying down. So I kind of feel like it has that feel of a KVK opening, which is the most fun part of Rise of Kingdoms. And it also has that coordination that you need of an ARC team or Osiris League team, where you're all on voice. You have certain people designated to certain things. For example, you have a flag building team, you have this open field team, you have this garrison guy. You have like all of these players dedicated to a certain thing, and I think there's a lot of potential. And when we were talking about mass appeal or how players en masse could play this, I would assume the way that they would do it is they would tone down the amount of deads and the amount of requirements it would take to play this game mode, but at the same time they'd tone down the rewards. For example, you know how silver Ark of Osiris, you get half the rewards for playing that version of the game. Perhaps that'd be a similar thing where out in the open field you have half the amount of deads. It costs half as much to play, but at the same time you get half the rewards, but you still kind of get that enjoyment. I don't know, it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with it, but I definitely see a lot of potential, and we'll have to see how they release it and bring it out to everyone.
And maybe they do something in the realm of like, maybe it's even like taking that same tone from Silver Arc, where the maps may be a little bit smaller, and maybe you have 2 circles to fight for instead of 4, because that then will continue to limit the amount of limiting the amount of swarm potential that you can have, which will then limit the amount of deads that the smaller player base can have. And then just a quick side note on Silver Arc, that map is awesome. Like, if that became more of a mainstream thing, like a quick 30-minute Arc match on that map is really fun. If you guys haven't had a chance to play it, definitely give it a shot. And I would like to see that grow a little bit more within the community. So just a quick sidebar there. But yeah, maybe going back to Supreme Strife, again, making the map a little bit smaller, and then kind of doing some of those things that you were talking about, Plato, pulling back the rewards a little bit, and then toning, adjusting the dead returns or the sevs, the ratios, and all that stuff. I think it's a really good step that they could take.
The flag getting swarmed down. It looks like 489 were able to swarm down the DK18 flag. So DK18 were able to build this top flag. They were not able to build the bottom flag here. As this map continues to progress, is there any other action on any of the maps here, or is it pretty much done and dusted for most of the maps?
I did do a quick scan, and it is pretty much done and dusted for them all, yes.
Okay, well, we'll stick here then. There's some action surprisingly in the 489 map, where we were talking about there's not going to be too much action. This is where the most action is. I will say...
Plata...
Yeah. What's your question, Brian?
Oh, well, I just wanted to mention, you said that it reminded you of a Kingsland opening, and Kingsland openings are certainly very fun. One thing I want to reiterate is that, when Plato in 1960 goes into a Kingsland opening, everyone is going balls to the wall, and, they're swarming every flag, and largely, the trade doesn't really matter, right? It does not matter, right? Yeah. But in this game mode, and this is what I like about playing in smaller KVKs, is that when I go into a Kingsland, the trades really do matter from the whole way down, because you really can deplete your enemy. You can deplete your enemy before they deplete you, and that just is a very basic, interesting thing that happens in smaller KVKs that doesn't happen quite as much in Imperiums. And in this mode, you have that. You have the top players in the game, the biggest players with the best accounts. You have them really caring about their trades from the very beginning. And I think that's a very cool element about Supreme Strife. In the chat, Corn Army said earlier, The troop requirement for this event is gigantically unrequired. And I think that's an interesting question, right? Like, is it like, does it even matter? Like, should you take any deads? Like, does it change anything if no one takes any deads? I mean, at first, it's not going to matter for most people, right? Because like at the end of the day, once we run out of troops on this map, we're just done regardless, right? So we're gonna care about the trade, even if we take 0 deads. I think you have to have the deads in though, to limit the giant whales, right? If you don't have actual deads in this event, then Mr. Hope and Wild Lion can just utterly dominate. Because they're just going to get everything back. At least with actual deads, there's like a psychological limit for those players where they're like, you know, do I really want to drop 300 million power today for like round 3 of Supreme Strife?
I think this game mode might be the one game mode where they could actually get zeroed. Like it's, well, not zeroed, but like the one game mode where they could actually lose a meaningful amount of power. Because even in KVK, you get half back. You get 60% back for those S plus maps. This, you only get 10 million back, and 10 million's a lot. But for the big whales, they might get like 100 million plus in a KVK or something. They might get like, I don't know, 30 million deads because you're fighting out in the open field, you're swarming, you're rallying, you're doing all these things. So there's actually a lot of potential to where even the top whales, and that's going to be the interesting component as we get to these closer matches. Will there be teams that kind of hold back and try to, you know, play for the long game, or will everyone just burn out within the first 2 hours? It'll be really interesting to see.
And I think that's a great point that we're on right now, because and even that Brian mentioned, like when you're looking at the top Imperiums, the trades don't matter, and then as you start to scale down into the smaller KVKs, trades absolutely matter. And I think from like for these top end players who are used to playing in Imperiums and whatnot, it brings back that feel of like it's a war sim, right? Like let's not get it twisted. This, at the end of the day, this is a war simulation, and in real war, all those resources matter, all your troops matter. And as those start to like really dwindle down, we start to get more to that foundation of what the game truly is as a war sim, and gets those top end players to kind of experience that a little bit more, because again, you're only going to get 10 million troops back, and for someone like Wild Lion and Mr. Hope, like 10 million is nothing. So they could see that and be like, oh my gosh, I'm getting really low, and that now start to consider some things. So I do love that you brought that up, Brad, because it does, and even too, to shine some light on smaller KVKs. Like if you want more of like a war sim experience, that's what you can get in smaller KVKs, because every fight that you have through a KVK is going to matter, because you're worried about the resources, you're worried about the limited amount of troops that you have. So if you want to kind of expand your experience and gameplay through Rise of Kingdoms, you go check out some of the lower seed action, and you can get a little bit more of that in-depth war simulation.
Yep. Or just join a Supreme Strife team and play this for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. You lose those trips real quick.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, like what we saw AB do earlier, right? With swarming that circle and getting like pretty bad trades. If a top team saw some of their players doing that in this event, I think they're just gonna yell at them. I think the war lead is literally gonna yell at that player and be like, "You're screwing us over. Stop freaking doing that," right? Whereas like in KVK, you don't necessarily say that to a whale. You're just like, okay, thank you for burning that flag. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And to that point too, like there's such a limited amount of players too. Like when you're in a KVK, you're, you know, whether it's an Imperium or not, you're usually in a camp with, you know, a camp is going to consist of a couple hundred players. In this, it's super limited. So every troop matters in Supreme Strife, and I think you hit it right on the head. Or even if it's a big whale player, you really could be screwing over your team if you're doing something like that.
Big whale player, it'll be an adjustment for sure to like hold back. And there's kind of like this push and pull where there's a sense of urgency where you want to just give your all because there's a time limit of 4 hours. But at the same time, you have to pace yourself because if you lose your troops before the 4 hours, then you're going to be in a very bad spot. So, I mean, there's going to be like this kind of, you know, sense of urgency between all these teams of like, we need to make sure we get what we want and time limit. At the same time, we have to make sure that we survive that time limit. It's kind of a weird way to. It's definitely something that we haven't seen in long. As we see the rest of the map unfolding here, there was a rally, by the way, from DK18 on this flag that's building from 489, but 489 was able to defend it. We now see that DK18 is going to be the main opponents of 489. Looks like Vita, not too many people coming around, and again, these guys are fighting for fun over here. Again, this is a preliminary stage, and from what I understand, like, this is going to be the more lopsided matchups, but as we get closer and closer, deeper and deeper into these the quarterfinals next week, semifinals a week after, and the finals then, it'll be really interesting to see how those teams react. And I'm curious as to the timing of this Supreme Strife, because it is really, really close to the Grand Prix. And I know a lot of these teams are playing both. It'll be really interesting to see how they react, because that's going to be Supreme Strife on the Saturday and then Grand Prix on the Sunday. So
yeah, that's pretty rough, actually, because you really have to do a ton of coordination for both of them.
It's a lot of like commitment too on like the time aspect as well.
Professional Rise of Kingdoms player at that point with how much time you're putting into the game.
Pretty much.
It'll be interesting to see how these teams react to all of this different play. But at the same time, I guess it's cool that there's a lot of game modes to play for Rise of Kingdoms. And I think this gave kind of an interesting wrinkle of like, hey, this is the potential of Rise of Kingdoms to put out a new game mode, because like, what was the last game mode Rise of Kingdoms put out that was similar to this? Like, would you say Champions of Olympia is like a game mode similar, like in a way, but Champions of Olympia, not too many players play it at this point.
I mean, that's the last one, right? That's the last like skill-based new game mode.
Yeah.
So, you know, to get some of the numbers down, this week, in week 1 of Supreme Strife, all teams have 45 players as starters. They also have some reserves. Now, I don't know if Plotto, do you know if reserves can enter in the middle of the match, or they have to enter? Oh, they can.
They can enter in the middle of the match if one of the players. So, if
okay. So that will be a strategy. Yeah, that's totally a strategy, right?
That was fine. But that would make sense as reserves, right? Like, you're like literally the backup comes like someone like
Yep. You know, so we can include the reserves, I think, then as part of like the main team. So this week there were 50 players per team. You can essentially add 10 per week. You can recruit 5 starters and recruit 5 reserves. So next week there will be 60 players per team. In the semifinals there will be 70 players per team, and then in the finals you will have 80 players per team on that map, with roughly about 20 of those being reserve players, actually. 60 starters, 20 reserve players. So as Dan noted a little while ago, it was, you know, it's a pretty small team.
It is a pretty small team. But as you're talking about, the players will increase. So I think the amount of possible touch points, the amount of shenanigans, perhaps players building flags will increase as well. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the first iteration of this game mode as it progresses.
Yeah, I'm really excited as we get into later rounds, because again, like, we didn't see a lot of touch points here, and that's where a lot of this coordination on voice is going to start to like really take a toll on the war leads and how they're coordinating. And especially like the map setups too. Like hopefully we get some like really nice map setups in a way that we get those good matchups. But yeah, I'm ready to see these teams like really go at it and like have like 10 plus touch points as we go into the later stages of Supreme Strife.
Let's talk about predictions, by the way. Brian, let's say your point first, and then we can talk about predictions.
No, you go ahead. I think I was going to say that as we start to wrap this up, we could go through the different maps and what's happened there. But I think predictions are also a good way to sort of close down this stream. Predictions, boy. You mean like who's going to win?
Yeah, like if you were to pick a pact to win it all for, we don't know what the packs will look like too. We have to see, like what the packs will.
Yeah,
look
that's
like.
true. I think that who you recruit is going to be big. I think that, I didn't look at GT quite closely enough. Like I guess we could maybe go to like some of those early maps, but like GT, I didn't look at your power Plato to see like how much power you had. Who do I think is gonna win? I think like GT needs to like maybe recruit a couple of war leads, to be honest. Like I think if you can like recruit like the right people, GT could be like very, very strong. I would have to give it to GV77. I would have to say that GV77 is the favorite. You've got two really strong assets with GV77. You've got Mr. Hope and Wild Lion as the most valuable players here. And then my understanding is that Shark has returned to the game. Is that correct? I mean, if you've got Shark back as the leader of GV77, then you have a very proven elite war lead. I mean, it looks like Mini is leading things today. But all in all with GV77, if Shark is back and he is on the team, you've got a proven elite war lead that can run the show for 4 hours. And so I just think that GV77 has all the ingredients to win this thing, especially with 1093 not playing.
Yeah, I think it is also going to come. I like how you mentioned, Mr. Hope Wild Lion kind of being the MVP of this format here. I mean, they have the most troops to burn, so like you can commit them to say like a circle swarm if you need it. Like, hey, go here, swarm the circle, and they're going to be able to do so no problem. Over and over and over again at that. So I think as we go into it, I think that we obviously have our clear favorites as some of the, those top teams that we usually see in these KVKs, GV77, 60GT, 489, 606. One in Group F I've been hearing a lot about. I think that's where some of the 1093 players have ended up as well. So again, as teams start to get kind of get knocked off, then where are those big players then going to get recruited to? That's going to be huge going forward.
Let's actually go through map by map to kind of, because all the maps are kind of dictated or now right by now. Like I think most of the outcomes are already closed and shut. So this is map A. This is where GV77 is. And you can see GV77 is in first place currently. Their ally...
There's Shark right there at the temple.
There you go. Showing, hey, this is me at my shrine over my Spire over here. I'm leading with my Joan of Arc. We got GV77 in first place, 007 in second place, OWR in third, and AO77 in fourth. It does look like Turk, 60MX, AB, and 3065 will be out. So that is Group A. We could go ahead and take a look at Group B. It is kind of awkward that I have to click out and go through all of these, but
there is a good pickup on that map A from 60MX. There's a player from 1929 at 225 million power. So it's one of the things I'm trying to scan through as we're going through these and closing out and see who are the potential pickups that are going to come out of some of these L's.
So we could see that right now, 960 or 60 GT is in first place at 112,000 points. Kong is in second place, which is actually the opponent's of 60 GT. That looks like they are still trying to push into this structure, but I think Kong should be able to keep their place in the top 4 due to the fact that their opponents, which would be DQ39, won't have enough time to take this Supreme Circle as well as this Supreme Spire. I'm surprised that they didn't try to build through it, but it looks like Kong was kind of denying that build. But Kong in second place, that is going to be the opponent of 60 GT that actually make it through to the next round. 1316 in third place and ZOW in fourth place. So it looks like 60 AP in this bottom right corner are actually going to be pushed out and eliminated here alongside WTF, DQ39, as well as ARB. Are we going to go through all the maps? Is this... Or
I think there's only like 5 of them. I think there's only about 5, so...
There are 8 maps.
Right, but some haven't started yet.
Oh, that's true.
18
that's
UTC
true.
time slot, yeah.
Yeah, there's only 4 actually. There's 4 going right now, so...
Okay, we'll look at all the 4 then. We'll go Group D. This is also a map that we were looking at. This was where DS was going 1v2, 1v3 in the center. Where it is still DS in first place at 104,000 points. Dragon at 43k, Ones at 42, as well as LLN at 41k. So those 4 teams will make it through, where KDH, 2010, AWIN, and 53DB will not make it through. And then the final map here, as we go back to that 2489 JST map, which is, I believe, Group E. Yeah, I believe this is Group B. And this is where we're looking at the 1v1 scenario in the corners. It looks like pretty cleanly the teams that are making it through will make it through, relatively easily, especially since the Supreme Spire was not captured. You see DK18 in first place at 44k, 2489 at 44k as well, Vita at 43k, and PW67 at 43k. And that'll be it for your this first Supreme Strife. I think it's pretty open and shut in terms of the results. So we're going to go ahead and go to the booth here. And let's get our final thoughts with our casters as to how you think the Supreme Strife went and what to look forward to in the future. I guess we could start off with Dirty Dan here.
So initial thought, I really like it. I mean, who doesn't like a good, pass opening, Kingsland opening? And this gives you all the flavor of that. And I mean, part of the reason why like some of the content creators like to go to the big Imperial Kingdoms, because you get to see the biggest guys kind of throw down, and we're gonna get that all throughout the next few weeks. So I am excited to see what kind of strategies are going to be unveiled. How do the builds look? And then how do the approaches kind of develop when you start to have multiple touch points and you don't have these, these packs kind of locked in within the first like hour. So I think as we continue to progress, we're going to get more and more prolonged fights. And it's going to be a really nice thing to see. The top 1% of the Rise of Kingdoms players going at it.
What do you think, Brian?
I think Dan put it very well that we're getting a flavor of a Kingsland opening. And what I like about that as someone who has devoted a lot to this game is that you get the feeling of a Kingsland opening, but you don't get all the preparation ahead of time, and you don't get all the stuff afterwards where you have to deal with clearing a kingdom off the map for the next week straight and stuff like that. It's just a less demanding game mode than KVK, with a lot of the fun and a lot of the skill that goes along with the KVK. I liked everything I saw, really. I think it seems like a very well-designed game mode. We saw a lot of blowouts today, and so we didn't really see it at its full potential. But, I think we probably saw the favorite in the tournament, GV77, and then Dan did mention this team won in Group F with a sort of combined 1093, 2748, 1875 type leadership. They're the second most powerful team, And, I'm really looking forward to seeing two things in this Supreme Strife. Number one, I think we're going to have a couple of bangers. I think there's going to be a couple of maps along the way that are absolute bangers, 4v4, very close, and we just see outstanding action the whole way through. And number two, I really do want to see one of these pickup teams, a conglomeration of many kingdoms. I want to see a pickup team just come together and build something brand new that's very, very exciting. I'm looking at this team one more. I mean, they've even got a couple of whales. They've got a couple of huge whales from 2748 on this team. So, I want to see some new groups come together and build something great. And I think the potential is there for that to happen.
All right, we are going to be cutting it short because all of the matches have been concluded. But next week, we should have some pretty close matches we're going to be casting yet again, I believe, starting at 10 UTC. So that should be fun. It will be the quarterfinals, round number 2 of Supreme Strife. So if you enjoyed the content, be sure to subscribe to this channel, the official Rise of Kingdoms channel. And if you enjoyed our casts, our channels are also in the description. Plato, Dirty Dan, and Brian Koo. We'll catch you guys next time.